in the shootings that involve something like an AR-15, those tend to be far more deadly because those guns are designed to kill as many people as possible as quickly as possible. That's the way they're designed. It's true.
False.
Look at every single major school shooting where more than one person died. No, like look at the data, dude. Argue with numbers, my dude.
The 2235556 NATO bullet was designed to injure.
They're zealously defended rights to own guns, regardless of the slaughter that's going on in American cities all the fucking time, is that's sacred and sacrosanct. That can't be allowed. Whereas a mild inconvenience to a public figure, all of a sudden everyone's rights can just fuck off. You don't have a First Amendment right. You don't have a right to protest and assembly.
That's a false equivalency. That's a false equivalency. There's been
like,
many things.
Are these judges kings? Are they kings?
You're just going to interrupt me.
CNN and the mainstream media have been extremely destructive, along with the federal politicians and local politicians. Supporting of Black Lives Matter has resulted in the increased murders, both in 2014 after the Ferguson lie and in 2020 after the George Floyd mess. I'm done.
I don't want you on my side.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, and I'd like to welcome you all to another amazing edition of the longest running Twitch political panel ever, and the largest, the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. Thank you all for coming. Right off the bat, let me just lay down some ground rules. First off, no violating Twitch TOS. I don't want anybody breaking those rules today. I don't want Kevin Logan saying he's going to throw a Molotov cocktail into Hake's home, and I don't want Hake showing the no-no flag, okay? Wonderful. So that's fantastic. Second rule is that you will not speak over the moderator. If I'm talking, I'm just talking because I need to moderate, okay? You're all my cash cows. You're here to do that for me. So I do the most minimum amount of work required. So if you guys get out of line, I will step in line and stop that. I just don't want you guys talking over each other too much. You'll have a short intro and outro period, which will be uninterrupted. Please do not interrupt other people's intros, even if they mention you or really make you angry. If not, then I do hold the power to mute people. Other than that, if you have problems hearing me, you can turn up my volume on Discord in case it's difficult for you to hear me or you have any hearing problems. You will gender people according to their gender identification. If you don't like that, that's your business. You can do whatever you want on your show. This is my show. And do not bring outside unrelated dramas onto the show. I don't care what so-and-so said about your house or so-and-so said about your follower count. If it's not related to the topic, I don't want to hear it. Okay, I think that's all of the rules. And of course, there is the handy-dandy hand raise system. If you want to speak and you find it difficult to speak, use this as a last resort, not a first resort. You can raise your hand and I will write your name down. Make sure eventually it gets around to you. But do know that you might get wait times of upwards to 20 to 30 minutes if the conversation is developing naturally. Fantastic. Oh, and of course, no attacking people based on immutable characteristics. Does anybody have any questions, any concerns, any protests? Fantastic. So I'm going to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. I'm going to start with my lovely Canadian fellow Heem.
Oh shit! I thought you were gonna go to Bryce. Yo, how's it going, everyone? Dylan, good to see you. Dylan, can I ask you a question? Are you standing? What is this new setup? It's a standing setup.
I'm in Lviv. I'm in Ukraine.
But are you standing or sitting?
There's no chairs besides this one stool, and I don't like it, so I don't sit in it.
Hype. All right. The standing edition of the Hippy Dippy. Yo, listen, I'm Heem. How's it going, everyone? I hope you guys have been well. I took a little bit of time off from streaming, a couple of weeks, and hoping to get more steady back into it. I stream in the mornings. If you're in Europe or in Australia, it's probably prime time for you, or if you're an early riser in North America, come check me out at twitch.tv/Heem and on YouTube, where I'm pushing to 15,000 subs. Yeah, I'm really excited for having this conversation with you all tonight.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to Joe Lewis.
Yeah, glad to be here. Got the call from Danabo a couple hours ago, so here I am. If you like the content or whatever happens here and you think I have a decent take, you can follow me at twitch.tv/Joe Lewis, 2 O's. So that's JOOELEWIS. And yeah, that's all I got for now.
Kevin Logan.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Kevin Logan, leftoid from the UK, but don't hold that against me. You can find me at KF Logan 1875 on Twitch or Kevin Logan on Twitter. Yeah, this one should be fun, I think.
Throw it over to Bryce.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to say I think the camera angle and the setup looks great. I wish you the very best in your not crusade, but like quest for like a slot on 90 Day Fiance. I think you're gonna definitely find your like the love of your life in Ukraine.
Yeah, you stop yourself at
Bryce.
Wife. I like that.
Okay. I'm Bryce Live, BRYSLIVE. Yeah, we talk about all kinds of shit: politics, philosophy, economics, etc., etc.
Happy to have you. Now throwing it over to the one, the only, Hake.
What's up, guys? I am James Hake of the Hake Report. Nice to be back on the Hippy Dippy. Hello, everybody. Shout out to the chat. I'm live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. Los Angeles time, and I take calls live on air. And it's great being back on the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. We'll see what happens.
Happy to have you back. Hake. Amazing. Gonna throw it over to Maddie.
Hi, I'm Maddie Cakes. I'm a real life leftist political organizer, activist, helped found a agency that works primarily with congressional and senatorial campaigns and a few statewide ones. So keeping really busy, but still find time to occasionally stream and make faces and drive a lot of people crazy on both sides. So really happy to be here.
Okay, can you check to make sure you're using the right mic as we move over to Sprout?
I am the Sprouticus. You can find me at twitch.tv/thesprouticus, twitter.com/thesprouticus. I am Twitch's favorite conservative, pragmatic conservative, and I'm ready to get into it.
And now over to the Turk.
Hey, I'm Turk. I'm in a similar boat as Joe. Got called in at the last minute, literally an hour ago. So I will try my best to not mess up too much. But Dylan, you've got one more week to return my laptop. Otherwise, you're going to face like a $1,000 late fee and make that payable to the Turk. So have a good one, man.
Fine. You can just come to Ukraine and get the money. No worries.
Yep. Book it. Let's go.
Fantastic. Okay, so before we get started, there's one thing I want to say. So I know that some of you wanted to talk about of course, the events in Texas, but that was not one of the topics planned in advance because, obviously we can't plan around something like that. So just quickly beforehand, does anybody want to replace any of the topics with that? Or no, we ignore that and we just go with the normal topics we have on the list already?
I vote we replace Cawthorn.
Either way is okay with me.
I think the bigger question is who was prepped for the Cawthorn topic.
I was actually. I have mad research done on them.
I just and sorry, I think I'm using the right mic now. I feel like Cawthorn stuff just doesn't have as much meat to it. Obviously, right now, considering everything that's happened, the shooting situation is a really big deal. And the subsequent proposed legislation that's happening at the national and state level is something that could significantly impact people's lives. But I also get it if people prepared and want to go with their prepared stuff. So.
Is there anybody that wants to talk about Cawthorn particularly?
Well, outside of the fact that I've got personal beef because I've got a 2-week ban for showing his ass on stream. But other than that, no.
Okay, so I guess we'll strike the Cawthorn topic. And I guess we can start with that. Then we can just go straight into it. Obviously, recently there were some events in Texas. There was a shooting, which left 19 school children dead and 2 parents dead, 21 in total. And we're continuing to get more and more information. But once again, with another school shooting, there is the time-old, American tradition of discussing gun control, mental health, and a whole host of things to try to stop something like this from happening again. So that will be my question to the room. How do we stop something like this from happening again? And I'm going to start with Bryce.
Thank you. I think the way that Americans handle these kind of situations is that you need to um, come up with some kind of criteria for getting rid of these like weapons. Like, I think that you can have a shit ton of the guns that we all have. We have a shit ton of the guns in Canada. We still have problems with gun violence in Canada, but we somehow manage to keep it out of people's hands. And I think that's only one part of the solution. The other part does have to be cultural. Like, you guys need to have some kind of conversation where you shift away from, I don't know, like the Hollywood fetishization of like guns and killing and all this shit, and have conversations that like evolve it so you can be more like Switzerland, right? Like, Switzerland has a shit ton of guns, but baked into their culture is like teaching them how to like correctly use and respect weapons, right? Um, yeah, I think that's what it really boils down. We have to talk about those two things moving forward. And if you're not going to talk about those two things, then you're probably just going to have like a continuous shitstorm.
Next is going to be Heem.
Okay, so this one I had a hot take on this on Twitter today that I've been getting a lot of pushback for. So I'll bring it up here, and I would love to discuss it if you guys are interested. So I kind of agree with Bryce. I do think that, listen, I'm Canadian, okay? We don't have the same gun problem that you guys have in the United States. It seems to be kind of unique, the severity of it, as we all know. But I think that so any prescription I would have to keep in mind that it's a prescription for America, right? And American gun culture is such that like even people on the left, even people on the right, they all love guns, okay? And so I think rather than like advocating for policy positions that are unlikely to get passed, I think it's important to critique the culture around guns where we can. One place that I think that we can do this, for example, this is just a small example, okay? I noticed that like people glorify the experience of going to shooting ranges. Like, oh, haha, look how much fun I had at the shooting range. I think little things like that are a good starting point. I don't think it's anything to be celebrated if you're proficient at shooting guns. In the same way that I wouldn't expect someone to come and say, "Oh, look, I'm so good at making a bomb. Look how good effective I am at making a bomb." I don't think these are things to be celebrated. I think if people go to gun ranges, they should go. They should treat it seriously, and treat it not as a fun activity, but rather as a actual like skill that you need to hone and take seriously. And I think these are just like small examples. And until like the gun culture shifts a little bit, because this is a uniquely American, until the gun culture shifts a little bit, legislation is going to be hard to pass.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Maddie.
Yeah, I agree that a lot of it is a cultural issue. It's something that is very American, and you can see why that is with how guns and gun culture is portrayed across mass media, in movies, but also just in the perpetuation of gun culture and this sort of notion that Americanism and patriotism goes hand in hand with this rugged individualist mentality, which simply ignores a lot of how our society is built and maintained. So I'll be honest, me personally, I would prefer to live in a society without gun ownership, but I also recognize that that isn't exactly a realistic expectation for our society here in America, given our history, given the prevalence of gun ownership. So I would prefer to see coming out of this tragedy, again, I'm sorry if you hear squeaking, that's dogs playing in the background. I would prefer to see gun control measures implemented that are widely popular across the political spectrum, including mandatory background checks, mandatory wait periods. I'd like to see the assault weapons ban that expired in 2004. I'd like to see that reinstated. And simply for guns like an AR-15, there's no There's no reason why any private citizen needs to own an AR-15. Their entire purpose is to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And the argument that they are for personal safety is bullshit. The data tells us that. If it's to protect your property and family, it's bullshit. The data just again confirms that. And I wish that people would just be honest and say they like having them because they're fun to shoot. Because that's the only one thing I could realistically see on a widespread basis for why people would want them. But I'll let everyone finish their opening statements, then we can get into it. But I mean, it's beyond fucking time that we institute more gun control measures.
Joe?
I support the readjustment of fundings in public schools. I think by and large, school administrators and school boards and districts at large tend to fund things in weird ways. However, if I do believe that there is a deficit in funding, the federal government needs to expand their funding in schools so schools can have the proper facility and utility to protect their buildings. I am a strong supporter of single points of entry at all times in school grounds, single point of entry, single point of exit. I am support of the expansion of cameras at public schools, the extension to intersections, this including traffic lights. So when you're in a situation where the school is on lockdown, it automatically turns on those cameras and starts recording them. My district has that, and that's amazing. I also support the expansion of school resource officers and police officers in schools. However, I will say that the way that officers handle schools in a school environment has to be different than the way they handle civilians. By and large, you should not have just a regular beat cop in schools. They need to build a relationship with students, staff, and administration, and these could be easily offset to retired officers who have the experience in the field, but also have the level of expertise and experience of seeing different situations and dealing with different levels of civilians. And that could be a team based on your student ratio, your student to teacher ratio. There could be a lot of ways of going about that. Additionally, I think there needs to be unified entry points in schools. So what that looks like is that you have a set infrastructure that is separate from the school itself, that visitors enter through, they get approved through that point and make it through the next checkpoint. By and large, I think the conversation tends to go away from school security and tends to go to conversations around guns. You're not going to get rid of guns, so I'm done arguing about guns. I think that you need to also expand preventative measures to students in schools. So you need to have proper guidance. You need that proper healthcare that includes counseling for students and young adults. Yeah, there's a lot of things I support. All of them don't involve guns. And hopefully maybe we can talk about that. I think also we should acknowledge that apparently Meal Team 6 was there in Texas. I think many lefties got a reinforcement of the ACAB argument because the way the law enforcement handled that situation was borderline embarrassing. You can get 5 niggas on Call of Duty and they can have a better plan of attack than those motherfuckers down in that state. So Texas should be embarrassed of themselves. And I really hope there should be, I'm in strong support of a wide investigation of what happened there, because right now 40 minutes is unacceptable, period, and they should be embarrassed for that.
Throw it over to Sprout. I do want to clarify, it's 40 minutes to an hour. The exact time is not known yet, but I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
All right, so I'm going to agree a little bit with Joe Lewis. I'm a huge fan of single point of entry, single point of exit in schools. I think school security needs to be brought up. You see this, and you see metal detectors in courthouses. You see metal detectors in airports. It does not affect the people that go into courthouses that they feel like they're more afraid of a shooting when they're in a courthouse because they went through a metal detector and they had to go through that security. And so I think that adding in metal detectors and stuff like that, security for schools, would be absolutely fantastic. It is reported that the school officer at the elementary school was not on the campus when this shooting happened, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's leaving your post, and the fact that the special weapons and tactics team for the police, that the local police would not let the special weapons and tactics team actually go into the school to try and confront the attacker is absolutely hideous. The special weapons and tactics team should have been able to go in.
Okay, and we're now going to throw it over to Hake.
All right. So I agree that we need to change the culture, but I don't think it's the culture around guns. Most of the people who are in the so-called gun culture are not the ones who are doing these shootings, by and large. Sometimes it is their children, I guess. But we need to change the culture around families and around anger and isolation. A lot of times these young men are getting angry at their own families and they can't deal with life and stuff like that. So we need to change that, and we also need to change the culture around just logic and courage, such as both in the police force and on the school grounds, where we have like security and we don't have these ducks in a barrel gun-free zones where people can go in and know they're not going to be at risk of getting people shooting back. You know, Dylan Roof was a mass shooter who shot up a black church, and he thought about shooting up some um, black like drug dealers or gang members, but he knew that they would shoot back, so he decided to go to where the innocent people who wouldn't hurt him, pose any threat to him. So we need both like practical measures and logic, and we also need a return to families and love and fathers. The father of this young man, wished that he just killed him, the father, because they'd had a strained relationship. Whereas the mother didn't seem to take as much responsibility. But we need families back together.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Kevin Logan.
Yeah, there's a far more practical consideration here that certainly half of the two political parties in America are bought and paid for by the National Rifle Association. They own the GOP pretty much lock, stock, and barrel. They've given millions to virtually all of the senators who are going to block any realistic change to the one issue that they seem absolutely set on not talking about. They'll talk about anything. They'll talk about fucking doors. They'll talk about mental health care, even though they don't actually plan on funding mental health care either. They'll talk about everything except the guns, except passing reasonable gun legislation, which is bipartisan support amongst huge sections of the American population. It's not democratic. It's ridiculous. The rot at the heart of American politics is dirty money, and nothing could be more dirty than the money that is stained with the blood of the kids of Douglas Stoneman High School and of the kids in Uvalde and various other places, as well as in synagogues, churches, and mosques across America. This keeps happening. It only happens in America by and large. I mean, just think, I don't want to attack anyone individually here, but think about the idea that you want to turn schools into, like, courtrooms. It's a fucking schoolhouse. Nowhere in the rest of the world do they have to do this. This is insane. Why... children shouldn't be in danger of being slaughtered in this way on the regular. It doesn't happen in other places. You could do something about this. But unfortunately, you're being held hostage by the most powerful special interest group arguably in the world, that being gun manufacturers. And secondly, the police, in this particular instance, have gone beyond disgraceful to being, frankly, actively complicit in the crime. They turned up, they engaged the guy before he even got into the building, couldn't stop him. They'll stop plenty of innocent people, kill plenty of innocent people, won't kill the actual one you want him to kill, though. Won't stop him. The families turn up and want to do the job of the police, who are cowering in the car park like fucking cowards. Not only not the thin blue line, but actively protecting him from the parents who were going to go in and do the police's job. The tactical SWAT team then turn up and they stop them from going in as well. At what point are they any different than using those children as human shields to protect themselves? Honest to God, it's an absolute fucking international disgrace. You should be ashamed.
Throwing it over to Turk.
Yeah, so I want to apologize if my internet's cutting out. It keeps going in and out, whatever. But I like a lot of what Joe was saying, because the thing is, are we trying to address a broader problem, or are we trying to fix problems within this certain like type of this problem? Because like at our school, my three kids, they all go to a place where you go into the office. You have to actually be buzzed in to even get into the office. And then from there, there's a maglev door maglock door, where it's very heavily controlled who goes in the building. I don't necessarily agree with the out, because as I pointed out to Hansa Fakir, most doors can open that are locked from the inside. But I understand the sentiment of where you're getting at. But then I also just want to do more societal stuff, because I mean, Kevin Logan mentioned most countries don't have as heavy of security. Go to a country like Israel. They have severe threats that have on their lives, and that's just the reality of things, right? They have to protect their kids. We should be investing more money into protecting our kids across the board. And I think going to the Hake's take, that rhymed. I think as a society, we need to kind of grow up from our, partisan mentality and actually talk about some of these conversations, because I liked hearing that there were some policies being discussed here, but then you hear people like Maddie Cakes and it's like, oh, we got to get rid of all the guns. It's like, well, that's not going to solve the problem, because people that don't follow the law are still going to get guns. So I would like to have an honest discussion about all this, and I'm open to informing and educating some of you guys.
Okay, now that is all the intros. Heem looks like he wants to start us off, so I'm going to throw it over to Heem.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, I have a few responses I wanted to say. So, Hake, okay. I agree with you on a lot of your positions that like a lot of this comes down to like atomization of society. People don't have a purpose in life. They're lonely or whatever. There's many things. They don't have the society, family support or loving support system around them, and they feel lost. But you even caught yourself. You said gun owners aren't doing the shooters, and then you said actually sometimes it's their kids. So like, I mean, like, I don't know. There's something ironic about that you even caught yourself in the middle of that. Anyways, and then Kevin, you said a few things that I disagreed with you vehemently. First, you said the Republican Party is bought for by the NRA. I don't know if it's so much that they're bought for by the NRA, if it's more so it is that like that's just what their supporters want, like if they come out and they seem like they're anti-gun, all of a sudden their opponent is gonna run, hey look, this guy is anti-gun, he's a Joe Biden cuck, and that'll be used against them. I don't know if it's necessarily the NRA.
Beto O'Rourke's specifically.
There's bipartisan support for reasonable gun laws, like background check. That is bipartisan national support.
Wait, sorry.
And the NRA disproportionately
Wait. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Okay. Right off the. Okay, quickly, guys. Let's remember.
Okay, quick. Sorry. Okay. So you said that they spend tons and tons of money lobbying. I looked it up when you said that. Last year they spent $13 million in lobbying. The total lobbying in the United States was $3.7 billion. That was NRA spent less than 0.3% of the total lobbying money on lobbying. You know what I mean? Okay. So like I don't know.
That's also because of ongoing that's also because of ongoing litigation, because the founder or the previous president of the NRA was found or accused of doing money laundering and stealing money. So the amount that they've been investing in lobbying in the past 3 or 4 years has gone down. But if you look at prior to, I want to say 2018.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying it's contextual.
It said they had record lobbying last year at $13 million.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Yeah.
Sure.
So anyways, and then also Kevin, you had a take on Twitter. I don't know if I misread it. I'm curious about this. You said that, and listen, the police were negligent, it seems, and it's ridiculous to me to think that like a police officer would say, I don't have the right gear, so therefore I'm gonna watch and as this horrible tragedy.
That's not what happened. That's not what happened. The local police the local police would not. Okay. The local police would not let special weapons and tactics team in. The local police prevented the SWAT team from going in.
Yeah, within the first couple of minutes.
My problem with Kevin's take was you said that you put your money on it that the police killed some of the children.
Yeah, because they've lied about every single aspect of it, and they came out with a statement for no reason saying, well, we believe that it was done by, all of the shooting was done by the guy. They've lied at every step, so, I mean, you'd have to be an absolute rube to not think that that's also a lie.
You think it's a rube?
Conspiracy
the police officer?
I don't know. No, I'm not saying it definitely happened. I'm saying if that doesn't happen, I would be very, very surprised. Yeah,
I would be surprised if it did happen. I don't know. I have a hard time imagining
it happens all the time. Do you know how many times people are hit by stray bullets in police shootings? Like that happens all the fucking time, and the police will intentionally say we believe that the shooting did not happen. Police 101.
We're going to stupid town.
Okay. I'm gonna just be clear. Sure. We're not going to speculate on details that are unprovable about a school shooting that just happened. I'm just gonna cut that off there. Move on. Okay. Who wants
Sure.
to
Yeah,
pick up from there?
I felt like we were kind of going to stupid town. I would say, however, that police negligence did lead to the loss of life.
Yeah,
And that's
for
something
sure,
that you
yeah.
can unilaterally agree upon.
I
That's
agree,
a
yeah, I
way.
agree.
I mean, like if we can, like I don't know why Twitter's coming into this, but I mean, like maybe we can just like not bring up tweets and just
Well,
what the
no, it was
argument's saying
about
on their face.
it was about the argument about this thing. It wasn't like drama or anything. I just said
No, I'm
Steve
just saying
Evans
like
thing tonight
I
was-
don't know what. Like, does that change something that he said, or it doesn't fucking matter? It's fucking stupid. Anyway,
Twitter is a reliable data source. Come on, Joe.
What's that?
Twitter is a reliable data source.
I mean, I guess if you're watching the NBA, but other than that, it's like it's kind of a hellhole. I guess something that someone brought up, maybe Maddie did. Like if we believe, like if I not believe, if I know that overwhelmingly the weapon used in shootings in schools is handguns and not rifles, what is the banning of rifles going to do?
That was to you, Maddie.
I realize that. So no, here. So
yeah.
I hear you with that, and I think because again, and to correct the record, I think it was the Turk who said something like, "I propose banning all guns." That is not what I said. What I said was, in an ideal world, would love to do that. If I had a magic wand and could do that, absolutely. But I realize that that is unrealistic, especially here in America. So the better decision, the more prudent decision that we could do is by implementing common sense gun laws. And I think a good start for that, in addition to the ones that are widely popular across the political spectrum, would be reinstituting the assault weapon ban. And Joe, to answer your question, my reasoning for that, because I agree, the majority of shootings of violent crime with a gun is with handguns. The difference is that in the shootings that involve something like an AR-15, those tend to be far more deadly because those guns are designed to kill as many people as possible as quickly as possible. That's the
false.
way they're designed.
That's
it's true.
False.
Look at every single major school shooting where more than one person died. No, like
Maddie,
look at the data, dude. Argue with numbers, my dude.
Maddie, the 2235556 NATO bullet was designed to injure. It was designed to injure in the field of war. That way you take.
How
did I know it was gonna be some nerd shit about guns? How did I fucking know it was gonna be some nerd shit about guns?
Okay, guys, okay, wait, stop. Everybody stop. Okay, I can't respond to Maddie. Wait. Okay, wait. I want to hear what Sprout has to say. He didn't get to finish his statement. Sprout, finish your statement, then we're going to throw it to Turk.
The 2235556 NATO bullet was designed to wound in the field of war. That way you take out two enemy combatants at one time rather than just take out one enemy combatant by having them be dead. That's why the military used the 2235556 bullet instead of the 7.62x39 bullet. Now, with that being said, the mass number of the number of mass shootings, which is what was being referred to as the higher number of deaths, even the number of mass shootings, there's a higher number of mass shootings done with pistols than there is done with rifles, and that's not even just limiting down to the AR. There's a higher number of mass shootings done with pistols than there ever is with rifles.
Are you talking about
wait. Jesus Christ, everybody is jumpy today. The only one who isn't jumpy is Hank. It's because he doesn't have the mind of a woman, right, Hank? We got to throw it over. Right. We got to throw it over to Maddie.
Excuse you? Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I said, I acknowledge that the majority of shootings are conducted with handguns. No one's disputing that. But what I am saying is that in mass shootings, where a shooter explicitly goes to a school, like what happened as early as Columbine, like what happened at Parkland, like what happened a few days ago in Texas, they are armed with an AR-15, and that is why there is such a much higher loss of life. And it happens so quickly because that's how those guns are designed. Those are with armor-piercing bullets. That is, they had to take DNA samples from the kids and their families to identify them because they couldn't identify, because their bodies were fucking destroyed. That fucking is horrifying. So the notion that, why not ban all the guns? Why not ban handguns? I want to ban guns that are designed specifically to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. The assault weapons ban that expired in 2004 worked well. Like, there's data to back that up, showing that mass shootings declined, especially with those, and when we were using those kinds of weapons. And it blows my mind that people don't think, like, there's so much blood on the hands of the gun lobby, and all for what? So people can own an AR-15?
Can I ask what is so you wait, can I ask, this is, I'm ignorant, okay? So maybe you can explain. I'm sure there's lots of people in chat that are ignorant. Are you guys saying that having like a weapon that's like automatic or has a massive capacity and a rapid firing rate, that's not going to impact your effectiveness and or
So
versus a
wait,
pistol?
they're not automatic.
Okay.
So
My God.
first
Okay.
off, AR-15s are
I'm
not.
asking, I'm
They're
genuinely
not
asking. I don't know.
automatic,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, first off, AR-15s are not sorry, they're not automatic. They're semi-automatic, which means
Okay, still.
per one trigger pull, one bullet comes out, which means that someone could shoot just as much bullets out of a pistol as they could an AR-style rifle. Second off, Maddie,
What about the magazine?
Second off, Maddie, an AR was not used in Columbine. Third off, the magazine. You talk about the 30-round magazine. You can get a 30-round magazine for a handgun.
I just want to
Okay,
be
and
clear
then
about
one-
something
Yeah.
too, which matters. Only 12% of the mass shootings in schools have an extended magazine. That is 22 incidents, by the way.
And
So-
what
Yeah.
about those bump stocks? Did they get are those banned now?
Bump stocks are illegal.
But don't they have things that are similar to bump stocks that treat them the same? That
They have a
basically
specialized trigger to where you can pull the trigger once, the bullet comes out, release the trigger, the bullet comes out. It's a
Force
two it's
reset.
a two-stage
two-shot?
trigger.
No, it's a force
Gotcha.
reset trigger.
You know,
Force
I
reset
feel like
trigger.
we're really glossing over something that could be really, really important to talk about. I think Hake talked about how there's like something about like the mother taking responsibility, right? Maybe what we need to do in order to create this culture, because I feel like this conversation itself, highlighting the fucking gun nerds that are in the call right now, is also an indication of the kind of culture that's a problem, right? Like, I'm gonna throw it to Hake because I'm really curious to hear what he means by like how the mother might influence people like Spartacus to be less of a gun nerd and to be a little more like a Swiss, like responsible, like non-female brain when it comes to guns. What do you think, Hake?
I don't think Sprouticus is a mass shooting threat. He seems to be well adjusted. Doesn't look like he's necessarily on drugs or coming off of drugs, and he's not, he's getting it off his chest. And by and large, these people who are into the guns aren't the problem. I mentioned, Heem pointed out that I said that, well, for example, Adam Lanza's mother was the one who had the gun, I believe. Adam Lanza, the one who shot up the school in Connecticut, wherever it was. And he shot and killed his mother and then went to the school. And it reminded me a lot of this case where this young male shot his grandmother in the face. Fortunately, she was able to call the police and survived that long, at least. I don't know what's happened with her. But these people are angry at their mothers and grandmothers, and they don't have their fathers.
I have to agree. I think misogyny is a massive indicator for potential mass gun violence. And having something like red flag laws in place where people who show obvious signs of mental instability and propensity towards violent rhetoric might have some of their rights curtailed, at least in the short term, until they can prove that they were not a safety
Wait,
issue.
so
But you're not a
you have to
fan of
prove.
due
Wait, no.
process, right?
If you, that sounds kind of crazy to me. Like these red flag laws. I don't want to get derailed into like the mud about that particular thing. But
I mean, red
that's
flags
kind of a
are
crazy.
Hundreds of
popular-
public shootings seems crazy to me as well, but
Yeah, the best
that seems like a bigger
indicator-
issue.
Yeah.
What are the main
I'm not gonna.
indicators for someone who's going to commit to an act of like violent, not only a violent act, but where they go and just like try to shoot indiscriminately? One of the biggest indicators of that is previous either like domestic violence or violence against women. That like is a pretty fucking common.
And there are
thread.
literally reports coming out now that the shooter in this instance was threatening rape and sexual assault against the female students.
And just to be clear, this checks out to like I think it's something like 62% of the perpetrators of mass shootings will also have some type of history of violence, and of that, additionally, of different just generally speaking, I think it's like something like 35% had some type of domestic abuse on their record as well. So there are
So, I mean,
signs of.
I don't
like-
think.
So
Yeah,
I
it's like, I think we can definitely we have that, right? We have like the criminal record and it follows people, and I think that you could maybe have something like a team that like touches base with the parole officers of like people that are high risk of like recidivism or something like that. But I really think that it's a horrible shit idea to have legislation in place that says specifically like if you've committed these crimes, you are now like basically like a target, right? Like I think I think that there are other ways of approaching, like we have red flags, we know what to look for, and police being like actively pursuing
Yeah, we know
whatever,
that
right? Like
having engaged in things like domestic violence is a red flag. We know that that's a strong correlation towards this. So taking that into account, I don't think is undue in any way whatsoever.
Well, okay, but there's a difference between having like actual legislation that's like written, that's codified, ratified, versus just like having an active police group that is like, okay, we're looking into this because it's not
as we
just like
saw
we
in
want
this
to curtail. No,
case,
but your thing wants to curtail people's rights off of like a theory, like, well, we think you're not innocent, we think you're guilty, but so
Right.
you're now
Well,
immediately going to lose like all
No,
these
this is
rights.
taking
I'm getting-
preventative
Sorry,
measures
don't
that are
mind.
based in data and actual like research on what types of measures and things can prevent tragedies like this. It's not curtailing anyone's rights.
Maddie, you
It's
can't
looking
be talking
for
to data
legitimate
when your
red
own
flags.
proposals have no ground in actual data.
Well, can I just
Sorry.
say,
Yeah, no, that they do.
I'd
It
really
seems
love
like-
to hear
Wait.
Kevin's expansion of red flag laws because I'm kind of lost.
Well, look, what I will say is that anything that one proposes in terms of a solution that involves any kind of daring to go near the sacred gun, because present company excluded, of course, some Americans seem to have replaced ownership of a gun with personality. It's their entire fucking existence. It's their entire being. It's embarrassing. You need to stop that shit. It's fucking stupid. Now, any solution that one proposes, they'll just ironically shoot it down. They don't care. They're not interested in solutions. They'll just say, "Well, we need to tackle the societal issue." What the fuck does that even mean? What concrete steps do you actually propose to do anything there?
Kev,
you
I don't
mean-
know
I
if you
think
can.
I hinted at something that would be sufficient, right? Like one component, because it's a multifaceted solution, right? You're gonna have to have measures in place in like multiple levels of like development and society. But I mean, one example, because you're asking for one example, is literally changing how you're raising kids when it comes to guns, right? Like you have a different culture of like how you raise each
But
kid.
this is what I mean. That's wishy-washy nonsense. What
No,
does that actually mean? How are you going to enforce that upon parents in any way? How
Can
are you
I-
going to make that change?
Can I echo that and kind of center it a little bit? Because I'm kind of stuck
For
as
it.
well. Yeah. So like what I'm stuck on it is that we understand that you not only need a cultural shift in order to push something in the right direction, you also need the policy to back behind it. So it's like as much as we want to have parents like readjusting and reimagining how parents is and readjusting the gun culture, there are some states that don't even have a culture of guns in the first place. Where like I'm in New Jersey and like what's a gun? Like I see cops have guns.
I've
Like,
seen that. No, I've seen that documentary, The Sopranos. There's guns in New Jersey. What are you talking
well,
about?
there's different there's ways to get guns, but the ways that we can get guns like legally aren't the same.
Are we all pro federal background? 22,
Hey, literally
22%
anything.
of guns.
We already have federal
22%
background
of gun
checks.
transfers
that's the
are completed
problem,
with.
Heem.
Sorry, 22% of gun transfers are completed without a background check.
What? Where are you getting this stat from?
I mean, it's
That's
on
a
Wikipedia.
private
You can
sale,
call me
probably.
Wikipedia Andy.
And if
Okay,
they're
so it's a private sale, no?
if they're completed without background checks, how do you have numbers? Like I don't know how this stat. I don't know how you got this
Here, I
stat.
can
I don't
send
know
it
how
to you
they
right now.
got this
I can send
stat.
it to you right now.
So
From
Bryce, the
Wikipedia.
reason
Also-
Okay, wait.
This is from the Annals of Internal Medicine.
Okay,
Hold on.
wait. I'm gonna throw this over to Hake because Hake has been sitting there very quietly. I wanna reward his patience, and I'll write Maddie.
All right. Well, I do want to dispute agree with Kevin a little bit, but I dispute the existence of what did he say? Misogyny. I think that yes, a lot of men do hate women, and the men who do have the worst relationship with the women to the so-called domestic violence argument is from men who have been raised by these single mothers. We could defund single mothers and not be encouraging that and not be enabling that. That could be a concrete.
Yeah, we need more
policy
homeless
thing.
kids. Yeah, homeless kids will definitely help the
Let-
situation.
Your
Anyway,
proposition
so-
to defund single women.
Wait. Let him finish.
And so my point is, we can do things that don't encourage the cultural breakdown. But right now we have like a liberal and soft, so-called compassionate conservative type of mindset where we just go to arguing about guns when the guns don't get up and do this themselves. It's angry people. and
Wait,
nobody's
can you,
really dealing
can you
with the
point me
anger.
to this compassionate
Angry
conservatism?
people who
Because
hate.
I see
What?
Trump going fucking crazy at the NRA
Who
convention.
hate their mothers because they didn't have the fathers to protect them.
True. You know, oh my
You,
God.
Okay,
you
wait,
think
wait,
that all
wait,
the
wait,
shooters, Dylan Roof
wait.
had to.
Okay, we're gonna have. Please, everybody, can we go one at a time? I don't want to. I'll be really aggressive if I have to. I want Maddie to respond.
Yeah, let's defund single mothers. Oh, that's the best unserious proposition I've ever heard. Congratulations,
Can I
Hank.
ask Hake what
You're
would
a
happen?
disgrace.
So let's say
I'm not done. No, 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 no. I'm not. It's
Oh,
my
sorry.
turn. Then you can go.
Yeah,
All
sorry.
good, team. All good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one thing I want to expand on, because you were talking about background checks, and even if there is a background check, I think to take it one step further and to have something codified, we maybe need to rethink what we designate as objectionable offenses that can turn up on a background check, because the reality is that there are still men who are abusers who are able to, even when getting a background check, still get a gun. There are people who have a long history of violence who are still able to get a gun. Like, that to me is far more important than just saying, well, we need to institute background checks. It's like, absolutely, sure. But then what are we going to do with that? How are we going to use that as a safety precaution so that we prevent dangerous people from purchasing weapons that can be used to kill or maim, right?
Based.
So that's what I see.
And,
I think
this is why I want us to have an honest conversation and not be disingenuous with our statistics we fling out, because just as we saw with the Uvalde incident, had the proper authorities brought these things up and it would have trickled back up towards the NICS system, he would have been denied. Unfortunately, when most of the stuff that happened, it was when he was a minor. A lot of that stuff is actually written off and sealed because they're minors and we don't want to, throw them into the bales of despair, right? But there has to be mechanisms for local municipalities, county municipalities, state municipalities, and then national municipalities to actually have a cohesive record of what people can or have done in their past, and then judge those incidents when it goes towards a background check.
The problem you're going to have there is that the police are often the ones engaging in domestic violence.
And luckily, the police are part of the executive branch, and you can direct those entities how to do their jobs.
How did this guy afford that expensive gun in that truck?
I said that one, yeah, too.
18-year-old.
Well, he got that Biden
right,
gun check, obviously. Biden gave free money to all of the single mothers.
I don't know how
So he took it from his grandma that he was living with?
Turk, do you support? I'm wondering where your thoughts
single
on this.
mothers been getting away with this for too long.
No, he's been living with his
Exactly.
grandma.
The politicians are in the pocket of single mother.
Lord
Big
Jesus
single
Christ.
mother.
By the way, I am very serious about defunding the broken families or non-existent families. You can call it unserious if you want, but I'm serious about it.
We should defund the Trump family. Yeah, the broken Trump family.
How about the dads that booked it?
Okay. We're not doing this. Okay, so we're just gonna do the raising of the hand system for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go to Joe first. Then I got Heme and I have Turk on the list.
Yeah, Bryce, we got kind of stunlocked because everybody started interrupting each other. I'd love to hear your expansion of, like, I guess because I have a question for you, I have a question for Turk, and then it'll probably get lost in the weeds, but I'll just go back to it if we need to. So for Bryce, the thing that I'm stuck on is we've seen that alongside cultural changes, they come aside with policy changes. So I'm not too sure how we can see a change in gun culture without a drastic policy change. So I want to see, I guess, your thoughts on that. And then something to Turk, something that some members of, like, my community have been hearing on the radio juggling around is this idea that if you do have something that is on your child record that would be chargeable as an adult, then certain permits get pushed down the line. So that could look like something like, let's say you have some type of violence on your juvenile record, instead of it transferring over on your record as a 18 and over civilian, then certain privileges get pushed until you're 21 or 25. So I'm curious about your thoughts and certain ideas of that.
I actually agree. Were you finished?
Yeah, that's all I got. It's a Bryce and Turk, so sorry about that. But
So I'll go first. So, Joe, I completely agree. And since the NICS background check is a federal-based thing, I think they have the authority to kind of say, this is the type of stuff that needs to be reported in order for it to be a valid positive or negative hit on the NICS background check. And then they propagate those requirements to other law enforcement agencies. But that then becomes the question federally, what is and isn't a valid thing to request from these states, right?
Sure. And then maybe it's possible, and then I'm going to hear from Bri, right? Like maybe it's possible where while this doesn't appear on your record as an adult, it still has repercussions when you're doing things like getting a driver's license, getting a gun permit, and stuff like that. Is that something you generally would support? Obviously, like granted, we're throwing like something into the air as a pipe dream, but as a general thought on that, and then.
Wait, why would a previous incident stop someone? Why would a previous incident stop someone from getting a driver's license?
Well, I mean, you could have an example of like what I'm trying to say here is
as a minor.
Yeah, like what I'm trying to say here is, let's say you in the school environment assaulted another student and led to bodily harm. And then when you turned 18, that was expunged from your record. But I'm saying, like, what if we were living in a society where that still had repercussions, but that was just something that you need to know, and then the government needs to know when you do things like background checks and stuff like that. Like, if you,
I would be for that. I've even argued prior in the like the same discussion that if you've had a credible threat of shooting any place up, if the government knows you've had a credible threat of anything like that, that your ability to purchase guns is gone to the wayside. That NICS will deny any attempt you have to purchase a gun.
Sure, and granted, we already have like restrictions for things like DUIs, vehicular homicide, stuff like that. But yeah, right, what are you saying? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I wanted to let you guys do your thing. I didn't want to interrupt because it's probably going to take like a minute or two to get all the words out. I think the main thing that you might be missing is that culture is going to be a primary influence with regards to policy. Like there are going to be times when policy is capable of running against like in opposition of culture, but generally speaking they're going to run in tandem. So that's why a huge thing that you want to do is you want to tackle the hard shit first, because the hard shit is what's going to have a long-term impact. If you keep tackling all these things with like having like short-term impact to prevent something from happening, it's just kind of seems like a bad strategy overall.
I don't want to be rude, but that's kind of wishy-washy again. Like you're using really broad.
Why is that wishy-washy? It's not wishy-washy at all. You're literally saying. I mean, listen, if you want to have the conversation,
wait. I guess. Wait. Let Kevin explain why he thinks it's wishy-washy.
Okay. Yes, please.
It's because there's no concrete plan there. You're just saying, well, we should change the culture. Well, how do you plan to actually do that? Just saying it would be nice to be able to fly. I can't fucking fly. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is a very fair comparison to compare like possible legislative and like.
No, you didn't say legislative. You said culture. Okay, you were talking about culture.
So,
yes,
we're going down a road of semantics. I've got a question. I've got a question for you, Joe.
Bryce is right. Bryce is right.
What
like this is?
Are you for like sealed juvenile records? Are you pro?
So I'm sorry. I need to respond to that. Like, it's so unbelievably stupid because even if you were talking about like cultural reform, right? It is possible for us to have open conversations that does achieve either reform or evolution or adaptation, just some level or some kind of change to the culture. So it is possible. And when we're talking about it, we don't have to like. It's not as if like we have this all figured out to how to exactly do it, and we're just choosing not to. Like these problems are really complex, and it's not going to be just one thing fixes everything, right? Like when we're talking about having like these cultural changes, there are a multitude of shit that we have to talk about. And if you want to talk about like the gun culture and how to change that is a great topic, but it's something that is different than what we're talking about here. And what I'm trying to say is that you have to change the culture. Like it is a primary thing. You're trying to say that it's just wishy-washy and it's vague and everything is not really a good counterpoint. Like.
But so here's the thing.
One example
of something where the culture shift. Okay.
I see.
Yeah, that there was a culture shift. So a good example of that's cigarettes. And that's how we were able to reduce the amount of people who smoke cigarettes. And while there was a significant culture shift, that culture shift was initiated by legislation, by implementing restrictions that limited who could buy cigarettes and where. It involved the government investing a significant amount of money in anti-smoking campaigns. It limited and reduced where the cigarette companies, tobacco companies could advertise. And like for something like guns, so like to say that, oh, well, it's a culture shift, we need to have that conversation. Well, sure, on a micro scale, Absolutely, but that as
But it's a
a
micro scale that
proposal
affects the macro
is not
scale, right? Like,
scalable. No, but that's so you're saying it's multifaceted. One of those facets that needs to be part of the conversation is 1,000% legislation, because that also is what
yeah, of
drives
course.
culture.
No,
Culture isn't something you
a
just say
main
we're
thing
going to
that I
change the
said
culture like
So,
that. Then you
Maddie,
sound.
I'm confused. Are you
not how you do it.
arguing for government propaganda?
Am I arguing for government propaganda? Sure,
Yes.
Sprout.
Okay,
Sure.
because no, you're talking about the government spending money on an ad campaign to try and change the culture. To me, that sounds like government propaganda.
Single
like
mother.
it's called a
This is more
public
single mother
it's a public
propaganda.
health ordinance, but okay.
I mean, we did it for smoking, we did it for sugar, we did it for veganism, we did it for.
It's not
And the good thing
new.
about those were they were actually based on sound data. If you were going to go and do the same thing for an assault weapons ban, the data doesn't back it up.
But it
Well,
does
there it
though.
is. Propaganda. Like propaganda is a very powerful tool for persuading the audience, and every group does it. I don't see
whether it's
the
good or
American
bad,
government
it's
does
still
it all the
considered
time.
government propaganda. Whether it's
people
good or
could say
bad,
that-
doesn't.
I
Right,
think
when they have it, like, I mean,
government or
for God's
private
sakes, like, I
wait,
just
wait,
saw.
I can't.
Okay.
There's too
Yeah.
many people talking at once. Okay. Sorry, I want Joe to say his thing, then I want to go Heem, Hake, Sprout in that order. Kevin, I'll write your name down.
Yeah, I mean, I just got out. I saw Top Gun this morning because I had a layover for an instrument I was getting repaired, and that's literally just Navy propaganda from front to back. Is it a banger of a movie? Absolutely, but the DoD has overtly said, like, yeah, we totally make sure we have our say in films. Like, we can see this even from most recent examples from Disney when it comes to Captain America, whether it be Civil War or Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, I don't understand the. I guess what I'm stuck on is that we've seen like how powerful propaganda can be to like appeal to an audience. So I don't see why we can't have that for things like gun safety. Granted, some states have a bigger like hill than others. Like in Jersey, we don't like guns don't exist. Well, they exist, but they exist illegally. So it's like a lot harder to say like, hey, be sure to conceal your firearm. And it's like, nigga, we don't got guns in the first place. So why are you putting this on my TV? But in Texas, it's like, hey, conceal your firearm. Make sure you know where your gun is. It's a totally different message from Texans and into New Jerseyans. You know,
that's a false thing, because if you conceal your firearm and you don't have a license, it's a felony, dude.
Well, yeah. Good. I'm saying that should be a commercial.
So
hey,
your government should be telling you to do a felony.
The same way, no, I'm saying the same way that McDonald's targeted black people towards McDonald's, they should do the same thing to black people when it comes to guns. They should have Tupac and Biggie driving along in California, and then Tupac opens up the dash, and then the gun just falls out, and then Biggie's like, hey, you can't, is that illegal? And then it has this big little thing over on top, like, make sure you buy your gun legally. And then, like, that's the message.
And then it's the flying, like the more you know.
No,
and it's like makes you feel good.
I mean, for fuck's sake, you can even have that for Travis Scott, where being like, it just he's rapping and someone passes out, and it's like, hey, maybe I should say something about this person who passed out in the crowd. The more you know, like shit like that, like I don't know.
I think about all the tropes and stuff with regards to Texans and other people, and all that comes to mind are that they love their guns like religiously. So I do think that this harkens back to the whole culture shit. And I'm just thinking about another facet. One of the many facets that we've talked about so far is the fact like how much they fucking not idolize, but turn gun ownership and guns, everything to do with guns, into some like spiritual like group membership or something.
Yeah,
But
they make their whole personality.
These shooters are not part of that.
The simple idea, though, that because of what we're talking about, that the United States government should put on a fucking government propaganda campaign.
What about a
against,
safety video?
Against guns. It seems absolutely asinine to me.
I mean, we have all kinds of other government propaganda.
Wait, what about a safety video? Hey,
yeah, like
every flyover at a football game is propaganda.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, the military spends public taxpayer money on military appreciation days to the NFL. That happens.
Yeah.
That no
And
one's
when I worked
complaining
at
about
the
that.
NBA, we had
we're not
multiple of
talking
those.
about
Like
that,
we had
but I
partnerships
appreciate
with
that.
the military.
Wait, Sprout.
No,
What
I'm
about
saying
the
that
government?
that's propaganda.
Nobody can hear. Nobody here. So I'm going to throw it over to Heem because he's next on the list, and we have Hake, Sprout, and Kevin on the list.
All All right. Okay. I'm gonna skip Sprout because I want to go to Hake. Okay. Hake, I'm curious. I want to have a quick discussion. Okay. When you say defund single mothers, okay, realistically, okay, let's say that all of these things are defunded and let's say welfare is defunded and stuff. Do you think that like that would have a immediate impact? I'm curious what your actual take is here.
I think it would kind of whip people into shape. I don't know how immediate it would be, but
Like from desperation, like people will be like, "Holy fuck, things are so bad now. I'm gonna stay with my abusive husband or something."
well, it wouldn't be it. It would be that this thing is coming. It wouldn't be a desperation because you would be warned that this thing is coming, and then some people don't believe it, and so they just go on in their wrong life. But it's not every single mother isn't just because of an abusive relationship.
Sure,
And,
yeah. I mean, some of them just, there's no love or whatever the case may be, or they were never in love in the first place, maybe, or it's an accident. There's a lot of reasons, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have this loose sex relationship culture right now, where
Nice.
people are, and you see it especially among the well, I mean, it's out of control, and so when you don't subsidize that stuff.
Are you saying that shooters are correlated?
Wait, Jesus Christ! Every time. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we're going. Yeah, you can continue here. You were on the list.
Let me ask one more follow up. Okay, sorry. Hey, so just to clarify, right? So you're saying that let's say tomorrow we made crimes punished more. We said if you're gonna, let's say, I don't know, all kinds of various policies that I could come up with. You have to be married for 10 years before you can get a divorce, something like that, right? Or cut funding to welfare, whatever. Do you acknowledge that would have an immediate like bad effect and that things would get worse for these communities and people or do you think that it would get immediately better?
I don't know that it may get worse for some for a short time, but it also, nothing like hunger and desperation to get you responsible again too. Because a lot of this stuff is just a lack of responsibility. Because when you get kind of trapped, you're making more money not working than you are
The
working.
mom.
Did this panel turn into a single mother panel? I don't know.
I mean, he did,
yeah,
so
no,
we're
listen,
stuck in the basement.
The single mothers are raising the thugs.
Yeah.
Well, that's Hake's answer to everything. That's Hake's answer to everything. Single mothers
We're in the
are
basement. We're in the basement. I'm black. I'll allow it. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Apparently, we're in the basement, and he brought us there. So let's keep going. We're talking single mothers now. Let's go.
Like, no, it's not. There's no correlation. Show me the data, or are you all based on feels?
Look at the violent felon.
Is this based on feels? And you're blaming the women for that, not like their abusive fathers? Like, are you serious?
The fathers
Why do you
wait. You ask him like 3 questions in a row. We gotta let him respond to the question. Hake?
Well, first of all, look at the violent felons. By and large, they did not have their fathers in the home. Yeah, maybe
according
some
to
of
what
them
data
did.
set?
Look it up yourself if you're into that data.
You're making a claim, dude. Where is it?
It's common knowledge. If you don't actually know
common knowledge,
look it up yourself.
You're claiming it. Back it up, son.
Maddie,
I don't have
gotta
to back it
say,
up.
You were posting out false facts based on a skewed data set. You can't just then turn around and expect the complete, honest truth from other people.
So you're saying that we're going to connect violent crime. We're saying that that's the thing.
Okay.
Really?
So we're gonna have wait. We're gonna have Hake respond because that was another thing directed to Hake, very quickly. But then we gotta go back to the list, and we're gonna just have to go through the list because that's the only way we're gonna be able to do this topic because everybody wants to talk. Hake.
I mean, you already skipped me over 3 times.
Turk. Everybody. Okay, Turk. There are so many people on the list. So many people want to talk. You don't always get your way. I'm very sorry. Hake.
Oh, okay. So this is my thing. Heem is done. Okay. So my thing is we're kind of enabling irresponsibility, and that's a bad thing. There's a lot of unexpected, unpredictable outcomes from stuff like that. And I think that the nationwide coverage of this stuff adds fuel to the fire. I don't know the solution to it because as a media company, how do you not cover this stuff nationwide, But I think, and many people suspect that this produces copycat crimes. I think the one that kicked it off was the 4/20/99 Littleton, Colorado one during the Clinton administration. And I remember Wolf Blitzer asked Bill Clinton after the Columbine shooting, he rattled off a bunch of other school shootings, but they weren't on a massive scale like this. But it produced a lot of, these are really local issues, and the nationwide coverage, I think, is kind of undue, and it's with a very big agenda that has a lot of you guys brainwashed into talking about the guns when the guns are not the heart of the issue. They're just
So I
guns
agree
are the heart.
So I agree with you about, like, you're saying about irresponsibility, right? Would you say that, like, people being able to purchase guns without training or without having to get a license, like, I think that's irresponsible as fuck and leads to a lot of these things, no?
Maybe so, but I mean, a lot of the violent mass shootings are done with illegal guns, not legally purchased guns. A lot of these famous ones are legally purchased.
That's not exactly the case, but it's a semantical
A
thing.
lot
We
of
can
them.
pass
Yeah.
that.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, like for example, of the handguns, like I know that an overwhelming majority of the school shootings are used with handguns. Of that percentage, a third are purchased legally, and then there's like different variables of level of purchase, but it also
Right.
depends on the weapon, right?
That's you said a third are purchased legally. That's not most.
A third. Well, I'm saying,
Right.
but that's just legal purchase, right? There
Right.
could be purchased at least one gun. It could be purchased through a licensed dealer. There's a bunch of different ways of getting a firearm.
Nice.
But,
And so
I mean, I
one
just wanna get
thing I
stuck on
am
that.
concerned too is with these background checks and all of this stuff. We have a government that's kind of the enemy of the people. It's not kind of, it is the enemy of the people, and they have political enemies. And a lot of our veterans are being diagnosed with PTSD, and a lot of them have troubled marriages and all this stuff. And a lot of them would never do any mass shooting. And some of them are our best like defense against the government if the government were to become oppressive more than it already is.
I'm stepping in. I'm stepping in.
Okay,
No,
so wait, quickly.
Let me just finish my point.
I like the
Okay.
rambling.
Okay,
Finish,
15 seconds. We have 3 people on the list: Sprout, Kevin, and Turk. Okay, continue.
Me, I'm leery about these no guns for the mentally ill type of thing, because they're calling our veterans mentally ill. They're going to take away the guns from the most capable and the best among us.
What if they have PTSD to the point where they're
wait.
Mental illness does not cause the mass shootings. Anger does.
Holy shit!
But mental
Okay,
illness
so
is a
I don't
disqualifier on a
know why-
4473.
I don't know why the right continues to push me further and further off the fucking right when they say things like single mothers is the reason for thugs, and the veterans who have
Look it up.
PTSD. I did look it up, and guess what I found? I found that the statistic is outdated and incorrect according to the newer statistics. So you are wrong on that point, and you are wrong that veterans have PTSD. They actually struggle from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is an actual disorder found in DSM-5. It doesn't need the air quotation marks. All right, this is fucking ridiculous. No, you're sitting here calling my brethren, because I served, I'm a veteran. You're calling my brethren with PTSD fake. You're calling it a fake disorder that they don't actually have PTSD. And it's just something the government gives them to label. This is absolutely ridiculous, and this shouldn't be on the panel.
You're being silly. I'm defending the rights of the veterans to continue to own guns. They're accusing them of having PTSD so that they can take away the guns.
They're not just going to have PTSD. They actually have post-traumatic stress disorder from what they went through in war.
But my point is, do you think reason to disarm them?
Wait. We gotta let Hake respond to that because it is point of comment at him. So I'm gonna go to Hake to respond to that. Then we gotta move down the list to Kevin, Turk, and Joe.
Okay. First of all, everybody knows that the single mothers are raising the more violent young men. That's
outdated and incorrect. Outdated and incorrect.
You can claim that all you want, but everybody knows it. And then second of all, I'm defending the rights of the PTSD sufferers to continue to own their weapons. I'm talking about it's a setup, this whole mental illness thing. And even the liberals in Slate, some of these psychologists have said the mentally ill are not violent, the angry are.
I'm going to throw it over to Kevin.
I have to agree with one sentence.
She's muted.
Am I muted?
No, Maddie.
You're good.
She was talking.
She was talking to her chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to agree with one sentence Hake said. He said we're enabling irresponsibility, and I think by engaging with his fucking dumbass ideas, we are enabling in the irresponsibility of Hake and his fucking stupidity. Is stupidity a characteristic I'm not allowed to attack him on? Is that immutable? I don't know. Anyway, PTSD has existed, has been known about for over 100 years at this point. To deny that is like saying the Earth is flat. It's ridiculous and embarrassing. You should be ashamed.
I didn't deny it. I said that anger is what causes these mass shootings, not PTSD.
And Kevin, goddamn well the Earth is flat in certain parts, but overall,
that is true.
It's a little thick. It's a little thick, moderately thick.
I like them thick.
She thick.
It's all good.
She thick.
Okay, we're gonna
not like Jupiter thick, but
Turk.
She got curves.
Yeah, so I want to kind of bring this back to the conversation of Uvalde and the different policy discussions. Say again?
So were we talking about that? I forgot.
Yeah, and I know we've been going off the rails. So it's like we had some agreement across the panel on different things that we could have done that would have prevented Uvalde, right? There's different policy that's actually going to the Senate. I think they had their first hearing for H.R. 8, which would be the universal background check equivalent. I think everyone could agree to that disclaimer. Maybe my question to the panel is, why would H.R. 8 passing be a good thing when we're trying to keep people, or when that kind of a background check doesn't necessarily solve the problem?
I think a problem is that there's a disconnect between the federal government and local communities as to what resources are needed. Like, if we're going to pass something for universal background check and we're advertising it in a way because of school shootings, then that's missing the mark. Like, we know that specifically young men and boys suffer from different levels of distress and difficulty in the educational environment, and that lack of attention to their needs in an educational environment can lead to poor outcomes. Some as far as school shootings, others is just different types of falling into the criminal justice system and stuff like that. But again, something I support is not necessarily red flag laws per se, but an understanding that we have tools to identify children and young adults in crisis, and we need to make sure we have the resources to care for those children and young adults in crisis. That's something that the federal government could pass something that has standards of procedure around students in crisis, like the DOD, Jesus Christ, not the DOD, the DOE. It's amazing what a letter can do to change a department. But like the DOE can create like recommendations of how to approach children in crisis, and to basically, the point I'm trying to make is like unify that across all 50 states, and then each state can make different types of policy based on the district and stuff like that. That's something a DOE can do in collaboration with the federal government instead of doing something like passing universal background checks. I would agree that this is a young adult or a man. I'm saying a man, 18-year-old man who didn't have a criminal history and didn't have a mental health history. So he would still get a gun. Like, that wouldn't stop him from, you know what I mean? But I think we agree on that part, at least.
But in terms of those with mental health issues, you must be borne in mind the huge percentage of gun deaths in America and indeed around the world that are self-inflicted. And I think it's only right that we try and take care of those people to some extent as well, and save them from a rash decision with a gun that they wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to make.
So I think
thank you for raising. Yes, thank you for raising.
That's the proper question to ask, rather than banning assault weapons and all that stuff. Because if we want to be genuine to ourselves, speaking as a conservative, the pistol is the culprit to the majority, if not a larger than the super majority of the deaths, right?
So school shootings, 77%.
Yeah, so high. It's like, why are we keep getting gaslit into the black gun, black rifle fallacy? Maddie Cakes keeps cheerleading that. And why don't we go after the actual problem?
Well, Maddie did acknowledge that, like, this is kind of too, she didn't say it overtly, but it's like multiple problems happening at the same time. Like, you can say that there is an issue going on with ARs, like, and the usage of ARs when it comes to crimes of mass shootings, but also recognize that, hey, even though we have this issue with ARs, we also have this issue with handguns if you haven't really figured out what to do. But then we also have an issue with young men and boys who are in crisis, and these young men and boys in crisis, and overwhelmingly in crisis, whether it be through different levels of abuse, different levels of trauma, and have you, who are committing these crimes. But then, like, what sucks about it, since we're in like an educational environment and in schools, like, there's It's a lot of things. I think Maddie acknowledged that, but didn't like overtly say that. So I want to kind of make that clear.
Yeah,
Unless she
no,
wants to
that-
clarify what she said.
No, Joe, that was a much more well-spoken way of going about the argument than I was able to put out there. But I also just wanted to say, as someone who has a family member who's bipolar, and so like under laws, likely would not be able to get a gun. If you would ask them if they'd agree with that, they'd 100% say yes, no. Like I should not have a gun because it's not for to endanger other people. If you have something like bipolar, those downswings, it's not the mania where you're the danger. It's the opposite. It's the depressive state where you get suicidal. So it's a good thing. And I think, make kind of opening the floodgates so that anyone who has that kind of issue can fall victim to that spur of the moment, impulsive situation. That would be devastating. I think you would see horribly devastating results.
I think something that would help out a lot. I think something would help out a lot with the issues we have today is when you buy a gun, you are required to fill out a 4473, which is an ATF form to basically do a background check on you. It is a federal crime to lie on the 4473 that you fill out. The government does not normally prosecute the federal crime that it is to lie on the 4473. I think if the government got very much more strict about liars on the 4473 and didn't just let them get away with it, that would prevent a lot of people from lying on the 4473, and it would provide a lot more data to the people who are background checking these people instead of people just being able to lie their way out of it and get the gun anyways.
But you'd agree that something... You'd also probably agree, Sprout, that there has to be very strict parameters of what a lie actually looks like. Now, granted, like we're talking about, like I'm just going to do a form that people understand, and then maybe work with it from there, right? Like a job application. Like when I fill out my job application and they talk about previous work experience, I'm like, oh fuck, when did I work there? And then the question, and what sucks about it is like they can get the info. This is why I hate the government, because they have the information. Like I don't need to fill out your taxes, but they already have the information. And like I got fined for my taxes this year because like I literally did one number wrong, and then they said I was lying, and it's like, what? No, I still had to pay up. It's like
you added a zero. That's why.
For example, there is yes or no questions, and these are the yes or no questions that are on the 4473 that are most often lied about. Is are you the actual transferee or buyer of the firearm, which means are you buying this for yourself or somebody else? Are you under indictment or information in any court for a felony? Have you ever been convicted in any court, including a military court, of a felony, other crime in which the judge could have imprisoned you for more than a year? Are you a fugitive from justice? Are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana, depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance?
Wait, did you say marijuana?
Yeah, I disagree.
Let's get rid of that.
So I disagree with marijuana being in the 4473 to begin with. Have you ever been educated?
Put anime instead. Anime and League of Legends.
Have you ever been educated as a mental defective or committed to a mental institution? Have you been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions? Are you subject to a court order? Have you ever been convicted in any court of misdemeanor crime of domestic violence? Have you ever renounced your United States citizenship? And are you an alien illegally or unlawfully in the United States? And if you lie on those yes or no questions, because that's where people lie, is those yes or no questions, it is a federal crime, and the federal government does not prosecute people who lie in those questions, which I think is very, very telling. And I think that if the federal government started prosecuting people that lie in these forms, a lot less people will lie in these forms, considering they know the federal government could take them to court and have them imprisoned.
So the problem with that is the ATF is severely underfunded just to go over the big fish that commit much severe crimes, like all the different gun trafficking things that are going on between Indiana, Illinois, all the other types of things like Fast and the Furious. They are a very underfunded and understaffed organization. I don't believe they even had an ATF director for like the past 4 years or so. So it's like I would...
Wait, which department? I'm sorry?
ATF.
Yes.
BATFE. So it's like I would love for them to be properly funded so they could go after some of these habitual offenders. Unfortunately, that's just not the way the government works. I agree with Joe here in that they're doing what they can based by what the executive directs them to do, and they can't go after some of this might be considered petty, felony.
Well, you know what?
Wait.
Can do?
Okay, I want to make sure Bryce has been waiting very patiently for a while. We have Bryce, Maddie, and Heem on the list. Bryce, we can go
Can I
Bryce,
respond to
Sprout,
that?
Maddie, Heem.
Yeah, but I respond to that real quick.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
After,
so do you know? You know what the ATF can do? The ATF can stop spending money, trying to figure out if pistol braces are okay or not, and start spending money prosecuting people who are lying on the 4473. Considering the people who lie in the 4473 is a much more dangerous position than if someone has a pistol brace on the AR platform rifle.
Agreed.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with asking. Can I get a show of hands of how many people would self-identify as a gun nerd on the panel?
I thought you were gonna say self-identify as a gun, and also ready to raise my hand because guns are black. You feel me?
Yeah.
Based.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is gonna be my thing for the entire topic. I think that indicates that just even though I'm gonna preface this with I'm not trying to say that any of you are mass shooters in the making, but I'm just saying that I feel like the gun culture of gun nerds in America might be one of the places that we start with. Maybe we need to send them to like labor camps. Do we need to send them to like anime re-education centers? I don't know. I don't know.
Jesus Christ!
But okay, but listen,
Anime re-education?
wait, one sec.
First off,
Wait, no, one sec.
Gulags. Fucking
hold on.
gulags.
I disavow.
Okay. Fuck, you made me lose my train of thought. Like interrupting you to
Wait.
stop.
You
Yeah.
were talking about
Lucky
you were talking about the labor camps for the gun
I want to
owners.
read.
Oh, yeah. It's like
I'm the resident nerd here.
Yeah. So okay, the thing is, if you have so many other countries where there's all kinds of like upset, disaffected, like disconnected, alienated young men, and there have all kinds of guns in these countries, and there's not the same kind of mass shootings that, like, as much as I'm gonna say like mental health is awesome to talk about and to normalize and to like have great discussions about, but if other countries have same conditions and criteria but don't have the same mass shootings, it does seem that there's probably more credibility in talking about how the fuck we change this gun nerd shit from being so nerdy and likable for all these American male youths.
So with that being said, like the people that you consider gun nerds are often the people the least likely to commit a crime with a gun. These are the people that are the most educated on guns. These are the people that probably know the safety of how to take care of a gun. The people that actually take care of their guns.
A lot of them aren't safely storing them away, right? Wasn't there a shooting in Michigan or something last year?
He was talking about gun nerds.
Well, I'm
right?
saying, like,
And
I think
so-
it's the whole cultural. I agree with him that it's a cultural shift that needs to take place here.
But he said start with the gun nerds. I think that you're
No,
starting.
I
with
don't
the wrong,
agree.
I think you're starting
Sure.
with the wrong spot. I think that they're the least likely to cause harm with the.
Well, listen, I don't think that you're the
have.
least likely to cause harm because I'm experiencing harm listening to it right now. So, I think that trying to shy away from the responsibility that you have with regards to like the broad thing in shouldering some of this as like gun nerds does seem that like you're just, I don't know, maybe if you're like fetishizing the Constitution and like this holy thing, this holy weapon that was like brought to you from the heavens by like
it's a god.
yeah. It's like a god to you guys. Yeah, like
It's not a god. It's not a god.
Oh, but come on. How about this, right? All right, so I'm reading Hulk Banner of War. It's a great comic right now. It's a banger. And right now, All Father Thor, Odin, the spirit of Odin is in the hammer. And can control the hammer independently from Thor. Maybe we need that, but just for fathers and guns. So
Joe,
take the soul of the father, put it in the Glock, and the Glock can make decisions that the father would make on behalf of us.
I know,
Joe,
men
Joe,
could
you're
use
not
that in
making the
some other way,
argument.
though.
You're not
This is
making the
true.
argument against you, but putting you in a re-education camp any stronger by bringing this.
You
up.
can't put me. You can't. Like, listen. I like anime titties too much. The camp would be awful. It would be such an awful camp because they would not work.
You
on
need
me.
to learn. You need to learn.
Okay,
Joe?
That there's more than
What
anime
if
than
the
just titties.
instructors
This
were
is true.
like big titty anime girls?
Okay, so next on the list is Maddie and Heem. So we're gonna go. And Sprout will put you down, but we gotta start looking at wrapping up.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, because we talked a little bit about the background checks and what that would entail, and a few other like potential legislative measures that could reduce gun violence. I wanted to also shine a light on red flag laws, because there's actually this quote from a woman, Sheila Hull, whose son, Brandon, was responsible for shooting and killing 8 people. And she said her son was troubled. So when he bought himself a gun, she used Indiana's red flag law to alert police. Police did take her son's gun away, but prosecutors did not pursue a red flag designation that would have prevented him from buying any more firearms. So he was red flagged where they removed the gun, and then he just went and bought more guns and ended up killing 8 people. So I think maybe we need to think about, we have certain safety precautions in place that are meant to prevent things like this from happening, but they're not being evenly enforced. Or there are really easy ways to circumvent those laws. So the question is I think it might be worth codifying then at the federal level some of these things, like the federal background check, which would take it a step further than what we've instituted now. But the benefit of codifying something is that it makes it universal so that there are far fewer loopholes.
Listen, the problem with your approach is that you're looking at things in a very clinical and detached way, right? I think that you're not realizing that we need culture in the same way that couples in the bedroom need foreplay, right? You got to get things ready. You got to get things going. And before you try to actually pass and do shit, you need that foreplay.
I see this as licking the balls in in foreplay, and then you can get to the main event. Maybe this is you putting on the little costume or getting the fun toys out. This is priming you up, and then you can have the big shebang. So I think you just need to adjust what you're seeing in terms of the cycle of how culture's created.
So Maddie, I would agree with your take here, not the foreplay thing, but where I think we need to codify federally that DAs and ADAs have to prosecute cases that actually go towards these types of crimes, because we see it selectively on a bunch of the different Antifa stuff that went on, where they just let people back off the streets because they didn't want to go after the case, be it for not having enough time, not having enough resources to prosecute. And I really think from a federal level, we should be holding all of these entities accountable for the, executing on the laws they have.
Okay, next is team.
Okay. All right. So listen, this whole time, all right, you guys have been making it out like pistols and AR-15s are so similar, and by banning the AR-15s, nothing is going to get accomplished. So I did a little reading, okay? So this is a little excerpt from an article I just read. It says, according to radiologist Heather Shear, who worked at the South in the Parkland, I think, high school, on the victims of the Parkland High School, a regular handgun leaves linear tracks through the victim's body that are roughly the size of a bullet. The weapons are low velocity and often leave non-fatal wounds. On the other hand, bullets from an AR-15 and weapons similar to it travel almost 3 times faster than those of a routine handgun. The shooter can cause more damage while being less accurate, and the wounds are often far more fatal. She says that the exit wound from an AR-15 is often bigger than an orange versus a regular bullet size for a pistol. So I don't know whether it's right-wing talking point or whatever, but it seems like there's a reason why these AR-15s are so popular in these events.
Bro, I'm sorry. Did you listen to anything that anybody said earlier and the pushback that Maddie and I had? Or what the fuck are you engaging with? The argument was specifically, and that's what I asked Maddie directly, and she answered. I don't know what the stat is doing right now, but I'm going to give you the charitability that you weren't listening, so I'll just say it again. The overwhelming...
I was talking about Turk and Sprouticus. It wasn't about you and Maddie. They were saying...
I'm saying that your point, regardless of... The point, regardless of who you targeted at, was already addressed, and we moved past that. So I don't know why we're going back here. So I'll rephrase it, and maybe we can see where Turk elaborated on that and where you got lost in that, because they also agree with what I said. So the point was the overwhelming majority. The overwhelming majority. You're going for a PhD, right? Doctorate?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So the overwhelming majority of the weapons that are used in school shootings are handguns. Okay. And then underneath that, rifles and automatics make up 20%, even if you put those two together. Right? And then the question that I asked, do you have something to say, or can I keep going?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, and the question I ask is, what would the banning of those type of weapons do to the problem of school shootings? Maddie elaborated that yes, when we look at these shootings, that those rifles cause more damage. But the point that I was making, I'm pretty sure the point that Turt and Sprout were making, and maybe even Bry, was that that doesn't really solve the problem because you would still have shootings with handguns. So the approach to the firearms.
So what if it
what's
doesn't
ridiculous?
solve
Do you
the,
want?
wait? What? Yeah.
Okay,
So
go
what if
for
it
it, go
doesn't
for it.
solve the problem perfectly? It's still putting out a small fire that exists in a bigger fire. Yeah,
No,
you're not
yeah,
able to
so
put out the
because-
entire
Wait, can I
fire
say
at once.
something?
Wait,
Since I
the
was
people,
mentioned
the
too?
people that use
The
ARs.
22%. The 20. Wait, one second. The
Wait, one
22.
second.
Wait, one second. I'm
Okay,
getting
but let him-
triggered.
let-
The
let him
22%. The 22% of shootings that are happening with AR-15s would be less lethal and less effective.
That's not
let's
true.
let's
than
make
the
something clear.
AR-15.
It's not
That's
like
not
I want to
true.
make something. I
Point
want to
out
like I want to
something.
get like listen because apparently we're just throwing numbers around. So I want to clarify a number for you. The specific gun type that I'm talking about is a semi-automatic assault weapon. Of that, it's 27.9%. Now, if we categorize that to rifles, it is 22.7%. Then when it comes to handguns, it is 77.9%. But you can keep
Okay.
going.
So
wait,
you can still address the smaller
can I bridge
portion
this
of that,
gap?
can't you?
That's
Can
not
I
If
even.
bridge
it's an
this
easier
gap?
fix.
That's
Let
not
me
even
bridge
true.
the gap.
That's,
Let me bridge
give me-
the gap.
We're talking
Please.
about 30,
Let me
40,
bridge
one
the gap.
second, I need to talk to
incidences.
Joe
Stop,
for a
stop.
second.
Okay,
We're
okay,
talking
okay,
about
okay.
40
Wait, stop. Haim, Sprout, Maddie, that
Yeah.
order. Sorry. It is what it is.
Okay,
Kirk,
I want to
Jimmy.
clarify why you're getting so angry. I understand that it's a smaller portion, but you can still address that smaller portion. So why wouldn't you do it?
So what is this incrementalism going to do?
If it's more politically viable than banning handguns,
It's not politically viable though.
It's more politically viable than banning handguns.
It's not.
There's some movement of people saying we should ban AR-15s.
Yeah, and I
isn't
have
there?
some movement after I eat Chipotle. So like, what are you trying to say?
So those
here?
are two movements that are real and exist. What's your point?
Right, but the
Yeah.
point here is, and like I think the thing that the Turk, Sprout, and maybe even Bryson Hake would say is that the gun culture around the culture around
already
guns
said
and
gun
the
culture
support
around
and
guns
the
too, that was
support
my
of
point.
guns is greater than the people who want to make any type of legislation against it. Like, how are you going to stop? How are you going to convince conservatives to do that? Because a lot of the states, when after a shooting happens, and you can look this up if you want, after shootings happen, gun laws ease up. They don't get tighter; they ease up.
You know how you
So-
convince
You know,
conservatives
I gotta
by
interject.
pushing back on misinformation that pistols are just as damaging as AR-15s. when
Really?
they're not.
So okay. So
Nobody says
so
that,
Wait,
but-
so
well, okay.
That's what was said. That's what I was
in the
responding
Virginia,
to.
in the
Who said
Virginia,
that? Who
in the
said that?
Virginia
Did
Tech
anybody
school-
say that?
Earlier when I brought it up,
Bridge the
that
goddamn
was
gap.
said.
I have something
Take
that
his right
connects
about
the
your
two
mind.
things.
Just
in
Jesus
the
somebody
Christ.
Virginia in the Virginia Tech school shooting, there were 32 fatalities in that school shooting done just using pistols. People who use rifles are just going to switch to using pistols. This is not going to cause a
But
dent.
pistols require
guys.
pistols require more accuracy and are less.
Team, what I'm gonna say is
the
gonna help
bullets
your
are less.
argument. What I'm going to say is help your argument. So yes, thank you. Okay, listen, great. So mass shootings that involved an assault weapon accounted for, as we said, depending if you count rifles or not, 27%, 26%, whatever. So no, while they're not used for the majority of mass shootings, when they were, it left 6 times as many people shot per incident than when there was no assault weapon, so pistols. So if our goal overall is to reduce gun violence, a good way to start would be to restrict the availability of a weapon that on average causes far more destruction and maims and kills
Now,
more people per
according-
incident than handguns.
According
but
to,
I would say this,
according
Maddie,
to Mother
like
Jones,
something.
according to Mother Jones, that's the top 5 fatality shootings. Only 2 of them were done with a rifle. The other 3 were done with pistols.
So the thing with, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, Maddie. So like the other thing that I think would be important to engage with, and this is something that it's very easy for any of us after the panel to double check. There have been 13 mass school shootings between 1966 and 2022. So then we had to look at, of that 13, what weapon was used for that? And that would be a decent thing to help reinforce the argument. Because if I look at those shootings of those 13 between 1966 and 2022, and they weren't AR-15s or any type of like automatic,
When was the
semi-automatic
AR-15
assault
available?
weapon, then I would argue that what we have to do legislatively might look a little bit different if we're trying to reduce the harm from guns in schools, right?
say again, like our overall goal, yes, is to reduce the amount of violence and the deaths and injuries that result from these mass shooters.
Sure.
And that we're
Single
in
point of
agreement with.
entry
And I
could
think
probably solve that.
no, not yet. So I would think that that's twofold. I think, Joe, you were absolutely right before when you said, it's one issue are handguns, but also those are the ones that are more widely owned. They're, I think, just far more prevalent. And then you have the long guns, or whether you want to call them assault weapons. The reason I think that one prong of our approach should include reinstating the assault weapons ban that expired in 2004 was that when that ban was in effect, it was shown to reduce gun violence in mass shootings. The difference there is that when someone has access to like an AR-15, the amount of people they are able to kill or maim in a single period of time is 6 times that of a handgun. So if I'm looking to reduce loss of life, I'm going to look for something that has a track record of working, where there's a blueprint for us to implement it, and that honestly the majority of Americans have stated that they would be open to. Like, no one wants to, I think you're right. It would be like totally not politically viable to propose getting rid of every gun. That's not politically viable, of course.
So,
but
Maddie,
I think it's totally politically viable to curtail the assault weapons.
I refer
Yeah,
you
and just to
really,
be
really
clear,
wanna
the reason
respond.
why I push back is
I got it. Turk has been waiting a little bit longer, but Bryce has also been waiting longer than that. So it's Turk, Bryce, Joe, and then we got to wrap up.
Yeah. So, Maddie, I kindly refer you back to I posted in the Hippy Dippy chat. The no strong evidence shows that a federal assault weapon ban presented blah blah blah. No strong evidence shows that a federal assault weapon ban presence or its end caused the change in mass shooting deaths. But many studies found a correlation. What you're saying is factually false. Stop.
So you're saying that because
I'm not
gun
saying
deaths went down during the same period, you're like, it could be because of anything. Like,
no, a legit
right,
fact-checking organization is refuting everything you just said.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason why I push back on you, Heem, and just generally speaking, because I thought that part of the conversation was addressed. So I wasn't too sure what was being engaged in. Granted, it appears like there were some like little kernels of things that weren't discussed. So I wanted to just make sure that was clear. But also, I mean, like, hey, we got a little bit of drama that didn't involve going after Hake. So there we go.
Bryce, you're muted.
Okay. Yes, I did. Thank you so much. I just want to say, like, I've been sitting here thinking, ruminating, listening, trying to absorb all the sheer intellect that's being displayed here tonight. And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, maybe I could actually listen to some of these gun nerds, because based off like the merits, based off like listening to what Maddie and Sprout were saying, I lean a little more towards Sprout. I feel like just based off the merits of everything that they're saying as individuals. But then I'm realizing, like, in the aftermath, like, well, like, maybe also because Sprout is a former like U.S. serviceman, and then Maddie's maybe potential like future single mother. So maybe if I think Hake would side with me, and agree with me that maybe Sprout is like who we should listen to.
Yikes, dude!
I don't know. Wait, okay, I couldn't tell if that was an attack on immutable characteristics or not. So we're just
memes. It's bad memes.
So Maddie, there's been experts that have said it's not the assault weapons ban that's caused the rises of mass shootings. It's actually media coverage. And the media coverage, how much media coverage these shootings are getting, are causing more and more mass shootings because of the mass media coverage these shootings are getting. If we didn't have this much mass media coverage over shootings, I think you would see shootings go way down.
Like, again, I agree. Like, this isn't like the root cause. Like, the fact that they have availability for these weapons, I'm not saying like this is going to solve the problem. No, it's a multi-pronged approach. But what I'm saying is that when you look at the shooters that have gone into schools and been able to murder as many people as they are, 10, 20 at a time, the prevalence when they are using an AR-15 or a semi-automatic versus a pistol or a handgun, the death count is significantly higher. The amount of people who are just like injured or maimed is also significantly higher. So if we're looking to reduce loss of life and to reduce the number of people who are dealing with those injuries and traumatized and or just killed, a good place to start would be to remove the weapons that shoot as many people as possible as quickly as possible.
Even if you save one life, it's the fucking.
You could shoot a pistol just as fast as you can shoot an AR. There's no difference
Well,
in how fast you can shoot.
and yet the data shows that the shooters that use an AR are that much more deadly.
Jesus, we're gonna wait. We were about to wrap up, and then everybody has something to say at the same time. It's beautiful. Okay.
Hey, why are you so concerned about bullet speed? What do you think bullet speed offers?
Because the bullet speed is creating a more lethal.
No, it's not. That's categorically false. Bullet speed is not creating more lethal connection.
Is it the bullet then? Is it the bullet?
It's the kinetic.
It's a mixture. It's a mixture of the bullet speed, and
that's it.
the framing.
So
no, wait, and the framing and the caliber of the bullet, how big the bullet is. Like it's a matter of all of that. Whether the bullet is hollow point or it's a bunch of different other factors besides bullet speed.
Okay, go on. So you agree with us that if that's the one that's the most,
it's not the most important. No, it's not the most important.
If it causes more damage than a pistol,
bullet speed by itself does not cause more damage.
Engage, just end it. Don't engage, just end it. There's the black hole.
All right.
The black hole.
Ooh.
Okay.
So I think it's worth mentioning that there might be credibility to the fact that like these like large capacity, like fast shooting guns, whatever, might be part of the problem because he shot 116 rounds, right? And I think the different ways that you can look at it, you can craft a scenario where like a handgun shoots 116 rounds, absolutely. But I do think that just like 116 rounds is insane. Like
it's a lot easier.
You had an hour. You had an hour, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know the time frame.
40 minutes to an hour, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw it to Hake. He's the last person who can say something before we close up.
Okay, so Sprout mentioned the coverage, and I mentioned the coverage, the mass media coverage, creating copycat crimes. I suggest that one way we could cover it that would help the culture is to bring on legitimate preacher men who can address like the spiritual problems that these young males are having, rather than bringing in these phony psychology, psychiatry, female experts who tell mothers to tell their children that they're scared. That's not offering solutions. And the NRA and legitimate gun owners are scapegoats right now by the mainstream media, which is against the American people. There's no such thing as gun violence. There is violence using guns, but it's a tool. And liberals are against morality, they're against men, and they're against families. And so they just go after the tool. They just go after the tool. They're not going after the root issues. They're going after the symptoms. CNN and the mainstream media have been extremely destructive, along with the federal politicians and local politicians. Supporting of Black Lives Matter has resulted in the increased murders, both in 2014 after the Ferguson lie and in 2020 after the George Floyd mess. I'm done.
I don't want you on my side.
I don't need you to want me on your side.
I can't wait for Sprouts why I left the right.
You're an angry, blind person.
Okay, so we're going to do any statements then, and we're going to start with Bryce.
Thank you. I would just say I don't feel very swayed. I think that first things first, you have to think about the culture and everything that surrounds the acts leading up, leading up to the acts. You can worry about guns, gun control. I think all of this is polarized, party line bullshit. And if you don't talk about the culture and like other things to be fixed first, and then cause a general shift in society, Americans are never gonna like really figure this out, except like really half-assed weird things that last like a couple of years at a time. That's it.
Hake.
No, I'm done. I appreciate it.
Okay. Him.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Bryce. Cultural things are easier. Cultural prescriptions are often easier to say, like, hey, maybe we should advocate for this, or maybe we should, do this. I think like one of the big problems is the glorification of guns in general. I think they should be treated much more seriously than oftentimes they are. And then at the same time, I think legislatively, I understand that America's, it's tough to pass legislation for gun control, but I think there are some things that we can advocate for that, even if in a small way, improve, save a couple of lives. I think, that's a very valuable thing to do. And then lastly, I wanted to say, yeah, like, I don't know how much of it is the NRA versus just the political games being played here. Like, I don't know how viable it is for a Republican to come out and all of a sudden be pro, gun legislation being passed or something like that, gun control legislation, because it's going to hurt them in the next election and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of like political games being played here. And I don't know how much of it is specifically to the NRA, but yeah, the NRA is really cringe. But listen, I'm a Canadian, so I don't know shit.
Okay, Joe?
The statistics that I use today come from the book and the website, The Violence Project. It is written, and the site is run by Julian Peterson and James Densley, but that is an extensive database on school shootings and specifically shootings within schools. It's like the same thing I just said twice. So if that is something that you're looking to like find more information about, that's the violenceprojectbook.com. I wanted to clarify a point that Turk pushed back on, because I did say something that people don't really understand about single points of exit. And basically what that is communication within students and administration and staff that certain entry points out of the school are the only acceptable exit points during things like passing hours and during school hours. So if you were dismissed from school, you'd be exiting from, like, say, door 9 or door 7. And that way, when there's an exit outside of those parameters, it's easier to track like how things sort of happen with that. I know for some people are like, what? Like, how do you have the locked door from the inside? I know there's some people like in the chat that were kind of like confused about that, so I wanted to clarify that. Something as a friendly reminder is that schools can adjust their funding to fund guidance counselors, to fund security measures, to fund a lot of things without involvement of the federal government. That involves getting people in place that understand how to budget money for the needs that they want instead of dealing with certain over expenditures. However, I will also say definitively, time and time again, the public schools are still underfunded anywhere from $8 billion to $10 billion a year. And it would be really, really nice if the federal government stopped having their thumb up their ass and just actually funding public schools at least to the amount that is statistically proven to be what they need, and it's shown time and time again that there's a deficit. If this deficit is consistent every single year, they should probably fund it to that point, and that might create different outcomes. But I don't know. Guns are cool. Don't take my guns. And I guess the last thing that I will say is abolish the police, but apparently specifically only Texas, because they fucked it up the most. I didn't even know that was possible. The state with the most guns couldn't stop a motherfucker with a gun. Crazy.
Kevin Logan.
Yes, there needs to be significant reform to the way in which America does guns, both culturally and legally, and the two are intertwined, of course. The police are frankly shambolic and not fit for purpose. They need to be reformed very significantly. There's the conclusive that the Republicans, conservatives in general, don't really want to solve this problem. They have no interest in any solution to this. They're just going to naysay any potential legal change. So, they've taken their stance, I suppose. In terms of this conversation, I genuinely thought that Hake and his weird misogyny was going to be the most crazy element of this. But I'll be honest with you, the gulags for gun owners ran it very close. That was quite something, I have to say. That was the chef's kiss moment. Yeah.
Maddie?
Yep. Stop. Sorry, they're squeaking toys. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so we want to talk about a cultural change that's required. I almost brought it up on the panel, but I don't know if I was prepared for this conversation. I attribute a lot of that in America to a lot of just inherent rampant toxic masculinity and the glorification of those with closer proximity to violence. When you think about who we celebrate as heroes, who we amplify up, it's people who have a close proximity to violence, because we see that as the epitome of strength and the epitome of worship and respectability. And that is a really dangerous cultural place to be in, because it drives a lot of people who maybe are feeling hopeless in their lives or alienated or whatever. They turn to violent means to regain that control. And I think that is demonstrated because when you look at other countries that have similar gun ownership, that have the similar, like exact same rates of mental health issues and other things, and yet mass shootings don't seem to happen in those places, do they? Not on the scale that they do here. So I think there's a lot that we as Americans and our friends to the north have to contend with. And I think it's batshit fucking crazy to blame single mothers. And yeah, misogyny's not cute, my dude.
Sprout.
All right. So essentially, handguns are used more than rifles and mass shooting incidents. Rifles are used in the by far minority. And I believe that we do need to look at mental illness for this. We do need to look at one entry, one exit plans for schools. We do need to look at metal detectors for visitors for schools. We need to look at all of these things. And to add into all this, mental health in the United States is widely underreported. Simply because people don't go see the doctor for mental health. They don't get it actually diagnosed. It's widely underreported. And so to compare our mental health stats to a different country, I think it's a little bit disingenuous compared to the different political regions of other countries. Anyways, no, I'm not against banning guns. I think there's other security protocols we can go to.
Turk.
All right, so I liked that we actually talked about things that we could have done that could have helped prevent the Uvalde. I'm glad that at least 3 people on the panel agree that having single points of entry, more security, and additional funding towards those types of exercises would be a great thing. We kind of talked about and glossed over a lot of the mental health stuff. I wish, we talked about this in last week's panel too. But in my closing, I got a prop. I'm glad you guys like it. This is a 300 blackout for anyone that's interested. Us gun nerds and love this kind of stuff because there's a lot of engineering, a lot of technology, and they are fun to actually go and practice with. Now, before we go to the next topic or before your intros, I want you guys to answer the question. Is this a rifle or is this a pistol? And if you don't know the answer to that question, that's why we can't legislate these things, because they have a hard time of defining what is good and what is bad. And
pistol.
Thank you, Sprout, for ruining
It's
it for
actually
everybody.
a gun.
So I hate that people keep demonizing the gun culture enthusiasts because we like firearms, and that's why I'm here on this panel to help educate some of you people. That's 2 people interrupting in a final statements. I'm trying to educate and help people understand more of what firearms are and that they're not actually inherent evil things. It's the people that use them for evil things is problem. It's not the firearm themselves. So if y'all can have the answer of if that's a rifle or a pistol, I would love to know.
Okay.
Or an all other weapon. There's a whole other classification too.
Okay, so we spent 2 hours on the first topic, which means we need to race through these next topics. So the next topic is, should people protest outside of the Supreme Court, the SCOTUS homes? As many of you know, the Roe versus Wade decision was leaked. It was one of the opinions by one of the justices, Samuel Alito, and afterwards, a lot of pro-choice women and men and people went out and protested outside the homes of Justice Samuel Alito and others, trying to see if maybe they could have an impact in some way by protesting directly outside of their homes. So I wanted to ask the room, should people protest outside the homes of the SCOTUS nominees, of the SCOTUS people, and more broadly, politicians in general? I'm going to throw it over to Kevin Logan.
Yes, they should protest outside these people's homes, as long as they do so in a relatively orderly manner. I have no problem with him doing so. I think putting pressure on these people is important, and anyone who says that the Supreme Court judges aren't politicians is fucking crazy, given the way they're appointed and the way in which they act in obviously partisan ways. You need to put pressure on them, and I suspect actually that the leaking of this was precisely for that reason, either to test the waters as to how the abortion issue would be dealt with by the public, or by someone who knew that this was going to be a problem and wanted that pressure applied to those judges. And I think it's only right that you do so. Politics doesn't start and end at the ballot box. There's so much more to it, and part of that includes protesting outside powerful people's homes who hold lives in their hands.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Turk.
So I believe there's federal statutes that actually prevent such things that were going on outside of the court, people's homes. And if you don't agree with that, you can definitely go and try and rectify those laws to support Kevin Logan's British or wherever you're from's stance, because it wasn't an American stance. So I'm sorry, dude. But I would say for other politicians, there's probably room to peacefully protest outside of their homes, but it's explicitly coded into our laws that you're not allowed to do that. So that's my take.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Sprout.
I don't know what you're protesting. You're protesting at their homes. I don't get the idea of protesting at someone's home. If you're going to protest the Supreme Court, protest right outside the Supreme Court. I think when you go to their homes, it takes it a step too far. Protesting should be done to verbally give your anguish to the government and say that this is wrong. Give your grievances to the government. I don't think that protesting outside their homes is called for when you could just as easily protest in front of the steps of the Supreme Court.
Maddie?
They should absolutely protest in front of the SCOTUS' homes. You have the right to protest pretty much wherever you want, as long as you're not trespassing on private property, which they weren't. They were staying on the street. The street is not private property. And it's very weird that SCOTUS was complaining about this, because they just recently ruled against buffer zones for abortion clinics. So I guess it's totally okay to harass women and people with uteruses who are going in to get necessary health care. But the second it inconveniences them in any manner, that's uncalled for. And it's weird, too, because I don't remember conservatives being upset about protests in front of people's houses when Nancy Pelosi had people demonstrating in front of her house. I don't remember there being much an uproar when any other Democratic politician or prominent personality had protesters in front of their house. Just seems sort of weird that now it's an affront, because this is something that could easily extend into well, now you can't protest in front of their place of employment. Well, now you can't protest in front of whatever. The fact that they're so selective in where they're allowing people to where it's okay to voice their opinions and demonstrate, I think it flies in the face of our right to assembly and our freedom of speech. So yeah, protest from other houses. Who gives a shit?
Him?
Yeah, I'm very definitively against protesting outside of politicians' houses. I think it's super fair game outside of the.
It's been so awesome hanging out with you for weeks. I hollered out loud when you
Sprout.
started talking about planner.
Sprout.
That's my bad.
The second time
like-
you've interrupted. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't
It's
interrupt.
okay. It's okay.
All right.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, I'm definitely against it, but I do think that doing it at a restaurant or doing it at a theater, or if they're out at the grocery store, that's where you can agitate them. But I think the second they step into their car to go towards their house, it crosses a line, because I think that it puts their actual life in danger if it's very readily available where these politicians are living. And I don't think that you want them, I guess, to live in fear of their life and shit, and their families live there too. You know what I mean? So when you're protesting outside of their houses, you're actually being a nuisance to their entire family if they have kids or whatever. So yeah, I think definitely like protest at a restaurant if you see them, make their life super uncomfortable in public, but let them go and have some solace at home. And maybe when they're at home, they can fucking like reconsider their like you can be miserable at home. Like you don't have to look outside your window and see a mob out there in order for you to feel uncomfortable.
And Joe?
So, Title 18, Section 1507 of the U.S. Code states that to protest in front of a home of a Supreme Court judge is in fact illegal. The exact language is with the intent of influencing any judge to picket or parade in or near a building of residence occupied or used by such judge, juror, witness, or court officer, or with the intent to resort to any other demonstration on or near any such building or residence. With that being said, I think it's very interesting how we set these barriers for certain individuals, but then it's sort of free reign towards civilians. We've seen examples of different politicians protesting in front of politicians' places of employment, at their homes, advocating for the protests in front of their homes and residents. I'm a bit more nuanced in that it just seems a little bit hypocritical where we're okay with certain levels of protest, but then something about the home is this divine citadel. Listen, if you're really worried about people protesting in front of your home, get some niggas with some guns. It's very easy to do that, and these are people who have the money to do so they might as well just do it. Especially if you're a politician, right? Like I'm taking the 6ix9ine argument, okay? Like if you don't have a squad with you and you're in a position of power, you're fucking soft. Like it's like, listen, it's just pussy made shit. Like if you're really that afraid of people protesting in front of your house, then get some niggas and strap up. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Like and cope with it. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, but to get a bit like softer and a bit more like turn the temperature down a little bit, I think that generally speaking, that it's okay to protest wherever. Now, granted, we can probably have a conversation about where in front of a residence is acceptable, but maybe we'll get there. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Hake.
You know what? I have heard that it is illegal in maybe it may be more vague than these guys are saying, but maybe it's not to protest outside of judges' homes. But I say to the liberals, yes, go on and do it. Evil BLM, Black Lives Matter, who protested outside of Jackie Lacey's home here she was the LA County DA, the first Black female LA County DA. And she apologized to them after her husband tried to protect their home and her, pointing a gun at the agitators who went up onto her porch, onto their private property, his porch, really. Evil Antifa showed up outside Tucker Carlson's home and scared his wife and kids. And evil pro-abortion people now, or a couple weeks ago, were exposing themselves and opening a lot of eyes to just how far and how malicious and vicious these people are. And that's why I loved the overreaction to Trump just telling simple truth and people overreacting and him standing on it. This showed how pro-baby killing that these people are. And it's pretty nasty. I myself have protested outside a home. I protested outside of LA County Commissioner Sheila Kuehl's home after she voted to shut down outdoor dining during the China virus. And she went out that night and ate. She wasn't home, so it was lame. And we're conservatives and we're decent people, business owners and stuff. So we were well behaved. We showed up late Saturday morning and left early Saturday afternoon. And so it's a little bit different from these lefties who are protesting outside of homes. I didn't hear about the Nancy Pelosi one, so I don't know how they were behaved there.
Gonna throw it over to Bryce.
Thank you. Wow, I don't know if I can top Hake's story time right there. That was a real, that was a nice cozy tale that you wove for us. Thank you. I think that people should be able to protest. I think in the American legal language, it's called the traditional public forums. So I think that people should be permitted to protest there. But as always, Americans have shown that they either lack capacity for control their impulses, self-control, like whatever it is. So obviously we need things like regulations where like there's either like a zone, a buffer zone, or like prevent them from blocking like avenues of transportation, right? Like looking at like the Canadian protests and like blocking like ambulances, hospitals, things like that. So if you're blocking like a politician from being able to get to their car, or even just like harassing them and impeding them that way, I think that this is something that's problematic that we should discourage, if not like outright prohibit, to the point of like finding somebody if somebody does that. And also, I disagree with both Joe and Heem. And Heem's not here, but I disagree with Heem because when Canadian officials are elected to public office, part of like I forget the exact section, but the language in Canadian legislation is such that that public servant, even in their private lives, is treated as like a public servant, right? Like especially with regards to their like how we hold them accountable for their actions. Sorry, excuse me. So I think that this is something you have to keep in mind when we're talking about like the flip side, right? When somebody's protesting them. I think that people have very much every right to protest outside of their home.
Okay, I'm gonna Oh yeah, sorry, it's open now. Yeah.
All right.
What was something that you disagreed with, Bri? By the way, something I said.
Yeah. Wait. Can you TLDR me what your point was again?
If you are making the kind of money and you have the type of clout to make it to the Supreme Court of the United States,
So I'm sorry.
get
That was like
niggas
one of
in
the
your
dumbest things.
fucking
Yeah.
life.
I mean, no, don't get me wrong. Like, that made me laugh. I think that was really, really funny. But it was one of the dumbest things I've heard. Because like, what do you think? Everybody in Congress is just going to roll around with like Mossad agent looking people that just
They have
protect them all the
people
time?
with them to protect
Yeah.
them.
Okay. Yes. I understand.
Not
Okay,
always.
but I'm not just saying. Okay. I'm not just saying like. You have to understand like what a funny like picture that paints, right? Like literally every single politician having some like gaggle of
Most
thugs
of them
around them
do.
everywhere.
You,
I mean,
you
so
don't need
do
a
we not-
gaggle
do we
of
not
thugs. You can get
understand-
one or two individuals. Like, can we talk about like what would happen if certain harm happened to a politician? Of course, you're going to have certain people to make sure you're protected.
And
Like,
there's-
I think, like again, I'm saying these are individuals who have the ability to change how society operates in the United States. It is ludicrous to me. Like, even if I were in the House of Representatives, I would make very sure I had protection at all times. Like, now, granted, maybe you're Madison Cawthorn, and like you might have a more additional accommodations that you have to do because you might need somebody to wheel you around all the time. But like generally speaking, I think that like if you are in the House of Representatives, whether it be like or even the Senate, if you're the president of the United States, if you're a judge, you need to have people to make sure you're protected. Like, it's
Yeah, but the
ridiculous-
thing is,
it's ridiculous
you
to think
didn't just
otherwise.
frame it as like we need to protect our public servants. You framed it in the sense of like Joe the judge is at home in his like nice like suburb whatever, so he's got a ton of money, so he could hire to pay for like people to protect
If you're
his like
that
walkway.
worried about people protesting in front of your house, then get security.
Do we not understand the separation of power here? Do we not understand that the judicial system in the Supreme Court is not supposed to be a political court? The people are not supposed to change the mind of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to make decisions based off the law, not based off what the people want. That's not the Supreme Court's job.
How
The Supreme
delightfully
Court's job
naive.
is not to go with publicity. The Supreme Court's job is to discuss and to find in legal matters. This is
What a fantastically naive take. That
What do you mean?
that's
Wait,
not how that works in the real world. And you damn well know it.
Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean? What a fantastically naive take?
Because these people are as much politicians as anybody else. Frankly,
the
they're
House,
political actors.
the House of Representatives. So first off, I think that, and even experts during the time agree that Roe v. Wade was decided on shaky grounds, and those shaky grounds gave out. I don't know what else to tell you. The shaky grounds gave out the Roe v. Wade was decided on to begin with. Now, to bring that into this further,
Are you saying they acted politically?
Can I talk? Or are you just going to interrupt every time I try to get to a point? Thank you. So the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and the President had time to codify this into law. They decided they didn't need to. This was basic. This Roe v. Wade was only precedent. The Senate, Congress, they had time to codify this law, and they decided not to. And now they get to reap the consequences of not codifying it into law. Is the fact that it was a judicial decision that is being overturned because the shaky grounds that it was decided on to begin with has been ripped right from underneath them.
Okay, are you arguing that the initial decision was political? Then are you saying they acted in a political?
I'm arguing the initial position was decided on shaky legal grounds.
It was also extrajudicial. It wasn't really the courts job to actually create law. They should have ruled on the case that was at hand.
Same way with gay marriage.
Same thing.
Right, but what does this have to do? What does this have to do with protesting in front of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I just want to say we're not going to be talking about abortion or anything around abortion. Wait, let me finish. I didn't know anybody else hosted the show tonight. Holy fucking shit. Okay, excuse my French. Oui. So I understand the motivation to want to debate the issue of abortion, but the topic has to do with the morality of protesting out of people's homes, not the issue of abortion. All you can say is abortion is such an important issue, therefore, this is why I think they can protest at the homes. Not the issue of abortion, the morality of protesting outside of people's homes.
Yeah, because we all agree that killing babies is awesome. Yeah.
Dylan, my point was entirely relevant. The idea that Supreme Court justices are not beholden to the people, but they're beholden to the law, should make it to where the people should not be able to protest outside their homes because they're not beholden to the people; they're beholden to the law.
So what's the
They're
difference between?
They're beholden to politics.
But what's the difference between the protesting in front? Oh God, is just a location the issue here?
Yes, I don't think there should be protesting
and homes
the
is the
judge's
line.
house.
Would you?
I don't think anyone should be protesting outside of a judge's house.
Fantastic. Would you extend that? Would you extend that to private citizens?
I would. If a bill came up to where you don't protest outside of a private citizen's house, yes, I would extend it to private citizens.
So Joe, another clarity here. If you actually go and look at the law, it actually covers also around building housing a core to the United States. So
yeah, this one.
So in the land of the free, there are lots and lots of places you can't be free.
Right, but I'm curious. I'm curious about how far he wants to go with this. So Sprout extended it to citizens. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, wait, are you saying like in a situation where a citizen is protesting outside of someone else's house?
Yes.
My neighbor needs to cut his bush down. I should be able to pick it outside of his house for violating.
No, I think no, I don't think so. I think you should probably find other avenues to, if there's a situation with I don't know, like like Turk is saying right now, if they're not taking care of their property, you should call the city. There's got to be other ways. Like what is protesting outside of someone's house besides a threat?
Trim your bush.
Excuse me, protesting inside someone's house is it a threat? How is it a threat?
Well, I'm asking like, what is it? What does it do? What does it accomplish to protest outside?
It's gonna be based on the issue. But then why did you say threat?
It's going to make them uncomfortable, right?
No,
right. So a threat is on
my livelihood.
I can't hear myself. Stop. Okay, I can't hear myself think.
Well, then have an talking order.
What was that?
I said maybe we should have a talking order.
I think we should have a talking order. Raise your hand if you want to talk. Okay, so a lot of people want to talk. We're gonna go Maddie, Joe Lewis, Sprout, Bryce.
Cool. I'll be quick. So I wanted to point out, I know Joe Lewis had mentioned in his opening the, I forget if it was a statute or an article, but
US Code. Yeah.
U.S. Code. Okay, thank you. That prevented people from protesting in front of judges' houses to sway certain decisions and jurors, whatever. But from my understanding, I think that pertains to criminal cases or cases where that is being like currently in the courtroom. So I think that was where there was some disagreement in the legal community of whether or not that extended to Supreme Court because it operates a bit differently. So just wanted to call that out. I don't know the answer, but yeah. And then also I know a lot of people mentioned how people demonstrating in front of houses is a direct threat. They're like, oh, but they could hurt their kids or, threaten their family. But literally in all these cases where people are outside of Supreme Court justices' houses, there were no violent acts against those families.
But Maddie, what kind of
thing? You could say the same thing. You could say the same thing against, like saying, oh, well, they shouldn't be able to demonstrate in front of the courthouse though, because that's where specifically that's threatening. There was no act of violence. So
hang on. Let me respond.
Boogeyman. I hadn't even finished my statement and you're already trying to respond.
Yeah, because I want to respond to the point you just made.
Oh, because you want okay. Sorry, by the middle of my sentence interrupted the beginning of yours.
Finish your point. Go ahead. Was there more to your point?
Well, there was, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, we're not. Wait, this is Maddie. Go on.
Listen, all I'm saying is that we're instituting this we're eliciting this boogeyman of like, well, those poor kids, their kids might be threatened, whatever. Really, because like nothing happened, and then you could extend that exact same argument to any fucking demonstration. So like, I don't know. It's just weird to hear people like. It just is
just because a lot of the people who are going there are reasonable protesters. I just saying that it opens the door to psychos to fucking come and have direct access to these people's families and personal lives. That's completely different from protesting at their workplace.
But then
or
if
at a restaurant.
If you outlaw workplace or a restaurant, they're like, but then that opens
I didn't
the
outlaw.
door
I said
for
those
crazies.
wait,
go to the restaurant.
I said do those things. I said do those things. I said protest at a restaurant, protest at their workplace, but leave their home out of it.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that you're saying leave the whatever, then it's incentivizing or making it okay for crazies to go to their home. Well, but if you're saying then go to their work, go to a restaurant, then aren't you by extension saying, oh, but then those crazies can go to their work and go to a restaurant?
But
like
at least,
it's the same
at least the one
thing. Also, this only works. Sorry, one more point. And then this only works if they actually live in like a suburban area. What if they live in like New York City, where they live in a building where like it's mixed residential and commercial? Like, where do we draw those lines? Are they just banned from being in front of anything? Like that to me, I don't know. Again, this feels like.
So they should be able to harass everyone who lives in an apartment building because a government official lives there.
What people are demonstrating?
Government officials living in an apartment.
I see no reason. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, so to bring us into more of a private citizen argument, and I guess it goes to anyone on here. Should Destiny be able to call his followers to protest outside of any one of our houses?
I could give two fucks what a streamer does. He's a streamer, not a politician.
Well, I know, but
what the fuck does a streamer have to do with the argument of should we protest in front of the Supreme? I'm pushing back on this because this is a giant derail.
There's three people talking. Wait, there's three people talking. There's three people talking at the same time. So
Joe, he's calling his fan base to protest outside of your house because presumably he disagreed with something you had a debate. Right?
Has he done that?
This is entire. No, I'm bringing up a hypothetical. So this is entirely relevant. This is not irrelevant. This is entirely relevant to. Would you agree with people protesting outside of your house because you had a disagreement with Destiny? Yes or no?
People have already called my employment for things I've said on the internet to try to get me fired.
I too have had people. Yeah,
I disagree with that. Do you think that they should be able to protest outside your house? You're completely negating the question by saying that you've had people call your employment. I disagree with that.
That answers my question directly.
I'm asking if you agree with people protesting outside your house. It does not answer the question. You said have people call.
I don't care about Twitch streamers like to engage in this hypothetical.
Twitch streamers that I'm talking about. It's the people outside your house that are protesting with pickets.
But who started that? Some Twitch streamer that's irrelevant in the live stream of political.
Forget who started it. People are protesting outside your house. You good with it?
Yeah, I'm fine.
They have the right to do that.
They have the right to do so.
So now, are you guys okay with the Ottawa truckers honking their horns for a month straight?
If they shut up, him. Now, if they do something farther, if they do something, okay. What was the take again? I'll give you the floor.
The take is the Ottawa protesters spent a month harassing people and honking outside of their houses, and people had sleep deprivation. Are you guys okay with that?
Fantastic. And what did Canada do about that? They knew they were coming.
Because we cracked down.
Shut the fuck up! No, they didn't crack down. Are you kidding me, Eamdown?
They literally passed the emergency. They literally passed the Emergencies Act, and it was considered fascist. It was considered.
They responded in a reasonable manner. They didn't.
It wasn't reasonable. It wasn't reasonable. It wasn't in time.
They didn't make a perimeter to try to like alleviate the problem.
You're completely making a separate argument.
No.
You're okay with that.
Wait, one at a time.
Dylan, he has to answer my question. He has to answer my question.
Stop. I'll mute you both.
Don't act like I have to be courteous to you like that.
Okay. Ask the question again, please.
What is the difference between protesting? You guys are saying protesting outside of people's houses is fine, and I disagree with that. So I'm saying, what is the difference between that and the Ottawa protesters spending a month outside of people's homes, honking their fucking horns and causing sleep deprivation and causing massive harm to the entire city because people were stuck in their houses and couldn't drive out? What is the difference here?
It's Canada.
That's your answer?
Yes, because we knew.
That's a trash answer.
Well, let me expand on it, and then we'll see where we can engage on this, right? So they knew in weeks in advance that this caravan was coming. They knew exactly what their goals were. They knew exactly why they were going there, and they had a clear list of demands. So who's at fault here for this civil unrest? Is it the Canadian government and Justin Trudeau, or is it the truckers? Who's at fault here?
Why does it matter who's at fault? I'm asking
It
about
absolutely
the
matters
situation.
who's
Now the
at fault here.
situation has happened. Are you guys okaying that situation?
No, but
or do you condemn it?
So I don't have to condemn or condone anything if you don't engage with what I'm saying here. Who's at fault here? The Canadian government.
It's a mixture.
knew
It's a mixture.
the
It's a
Canadian
mixture of
what?
COVID. It's a mixture of COVID misinformation, a bit of white supremacy from the founders of the movement. There's
Oh,
a
God,
little
here we
bit of you guys are laughing, but they're literal white supremacists who founded the movement, and of course Justin Trudeau, who didn't engage with their protest things. But they still spent a month protesting outside of people's houses. That's the thing we're
And they
talking
knew,
about here.
and the Canadian government knew they were coming and did nothing
I'm
about it.
asking if you guys are okay with that.
It's Canada.
I am not.
Wait,
It's Canada.
That
I don't know what to
doesn't
tell
answer
you.
the question. I'm
Of
asking
course it
you
does,
in your
because
country, if it happened,
you have to give me an American example, right? Give me
if it happened in
give me
America,
something
would it
better.
be okay?
Gun
If it
range.
happened in America, the exact same thing. A bunch of truckers come and start fucking honking their horns for 1 week, 1 month straight.
Like
Are
they did
you okay with
biker
that?
rallies.
You said it's.
Am I allowed to protest outside of my
Biker rally.
favorite gun range and prevent me from going to the range to shoot my pew-pews? Is that against the law or not?
Wait, you're not going to answer the question?
Well, on that point, can I on the point of juxtaposing it to?
Well,
the gun
wait.
right-
I just quickly, Joe. Do you want to
I
answer
also-
that question? Or do you not want to answer that question?
Answer. What's the question again? What am I
The
answering?
question is, if you're saying this is a Canadian thing, for some reason you think if by saying it's Canada,
No, I
it's
said
okay.
it's Canada. I didn't say it's a Canadian thing. I
So
said
I'm
it's
saying
Canada.
if the exact same thing happened in DC instead of in Ottawa, and people were fucking protesting with their trucks outside of people's houses for a month straight, causing noise pollution, are you okay with that? Because you and Maddie and Kevin had the position that protesting outside of people's homes is okay.
I don't want to engage in this hypothetical because I don't necessarily believe that a government agency within the notice that Canada had of coming to the capital, especially after January 6th, the response would be any different. The response would be incredible. They wouldn't even make it to the fucking entrance. So contextually speaking, it's a nonsensical hypothetical because it would never happen in the
But
United
would you
States,
be okay with
especially
it?
after January 6th.
I could
That's my answer.
I could answer. if
Yeah,
you want.
Maddie, if you can answer it, yeah.
Sure. So I think listen, I have no problem with people demonstrating, but let's like in this case with those truckers, I would say there's also an issue with like a noise ordinance because that is legit something that's happening. Is that preventing them from being outside holding signs by whatever? No, but does it prevent them or make it so that they can't be like actively loud and adding noise pollution, whatever? Yeah, because that's a local ordinance. So
Well,
I think within reason, I'm absolutely okay with people demonstrating in front of houses. But if you're gonna then go violate a noise ordinance or whatever when it's like past
I find it
10 p.m.
shocking
or whatever,
you're holding
yeah,
the
that might be
noise
kinda
ordinance
shitty.
to a higher degree than 18 U.S. Code 1507, considering picketing or parading outside of these officials' homes.
Of a judge's when there's a criminal case. Yeah, it's the Supreme Court's a little different. And again, that's where like actual
Is the
legal
case
experts
decided? Is
have
it
some
finished? Have we
have
had a
some
final ruling on it?
No,
dispute.
but the problem is with the
The opinion can
decision.
be skewed by the
Let
influence
Joe
of
talk.
the
He's
picketing.
explaining
No, because
it better than you are.
your entire argument is dumb and it's defaced by what I said.
It's so funny how these guys that lament like snowflakes are like, don't come in front of my home. Leave us alone. That's sacred ground. Like it's just
I'm
kind of
asking.
silly.
I'm asking for that for liberals
Kind of
too. I
silly.
don't think it's right for anyone to protest and stuff in front of
Go
anyone
to
else's
my
house. I think places of employment are fine. I think other places are fine. I think that if you're out in public, that it's fine to protest. But when you go to someone's private house and or around their house and cause disturbance, I think that's when you cross a line that I don't think should be crossed.
What exactly is the difference between public and home here?
Especially if it's not like that works for like
vicinity of your
suburban.
house.
If
That
you
works
go
in like a
look at the
suburban
US code,
neighborhood,
it
but like not
defines-
all
It
America's.
defines where this is a
I
violation.
see what's happening. We're getting lost here. So like in the context of Supreme Court justices, it's highly unlikely that you're going to see a Supreme Court justice just walking around in public. So maybe making the argument of like if they should protest in public might not work very well.
They should
here.
protest in front of the steps of the Supreme Court.
Gotcha. So what difference?
They put barriers up, so you have to be like 100 yards away, so you're nowhere near the fucking building.
It's still protesting. You're still airing your grievances.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Well, can I just? Well, I mean, firstly, the question was, should they be able to? Not are they legally allowed to? So it's whether we think it's a right thing or not. And secondly, I think it's an interesting juxtaposition to the previous. Well, no, I'm arguing that
it's a different thing, right? Because like we can acknowledge that like there's two conversations that can happen. But sorry, Kevin, I'll cut you off.
No, I was just going to say the juxtaposition between the conservative view in the first topic and this one is quite interesting. That any even relatively minor change to their zealously defended rights to own guns, regardless of the slaughter that's going on in American cities all the fucking time, is that's sacred and sacrosanct. That can't be allowed. Whereas a mild inconvenience to a public figure, all of a sudden, everyone's rights can just fuck off. You don't have a First Amendment right. You don't have a right to protest an assembly.
That's a false equivalency. That's a false equivalency. There's been
like,
many things.
Are these judges kings? Are they kings?
You're just going to interrupt me.
Against feeling uncomfortable.
You're going to interrupt me like you do every single time because you're afraid of my response because you're not going to be able to answer my response. So keep your mouth shut and let me respond.
Okay, babe, go for it.
The Second Amendment has already had restrictions upon it, such as the National Firearms Act, such as background checks, such as concealed carry permits. It's already, and these aren't things that I'm saying should go away. I'm just saying there's already been limitations on the Second Amendment. So arguing that there should be limitations on the First Amendment right to protest, to not protest outside of someone's home, is a false equivalence from the previous.
But I'm saying there's not a problem. There's not a problem. No judges have been killed or attacked in this way, whereas the problem with the guns is very, very significant. Lots of people are actually dying. So it's interesting that you want to protect zealously this set of freedoms, but this other set of freedoms can fuck off, even though it's not actually causing any particular problem, because these people are not kings. You're not peasants outside their fucking castle. You are citizens. You are their employers. Okay, you pay your taxes to pay their wages. They serve you.
I guess the thing I'm stuck with
after
Sprout
Joe, we got to throw it over to Bryce, who's been waiting forever.
Yeah, and this is like the reason why I'm stuck is because we've seen time and time again that there hasn't been a protest that led to a harm of a Supreme Court justice, and then this idea of framing it like they ought to be like, I guess, respected in such a way where it's just something completely off the table, and that's kind of where I'm stuck on. Where it's like, what exactly is the thing that you're trying to make sure is preserved, and why do you think getting rid of protesting in front of their residents is the way of doing that? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I would argue it's for all citizens, but if you want to narrow it down to Supreme Court justice, I'm fine with that because I can make an argument for that as well. I believe that Supreme Court justices are not beholden to the people; they're beholden to the law. If you look at the oath of the office that every Supreme Court justice takes, it is not beholden to the people, but rather beholden to the law. They make decisions based off legal matters, not based off a poll, not based off their constituents. They make decisions based off legal matters alone. They're not beholden. So the idea that you should be able to protest a judge to change their mind on a legal matter is a little bit insane. I don't disagree with protesting outside the Supreme Court. But if you go to their houses, I would say you've crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. Yes,
they're politically partisan hacks. These are not like robots who are just interpreting the law.
Wait, guys! I gotta throw it over to Bryce, who's been waiting very patiently, and I saw Hake wanted to get in there, and Hake hasn't talked at all, so I want to throw it over to Hake afterwards. Bryce,
thank you. What I was gonna say is kind of beyond what everyone's talking about now. But I'll say like one thing, and primarily to chat. How many of you want to protest outside Joe's house, and how many of you want to protest outside of Sprout's house right now? That's what I want to know. Yeah, carry on.
Okay, so Kevin Logan made the point that in reality, these justices and judges in these very politically charged cases are politicians effectively. But you have to give the guy who doesn't want to be on my side, Sprout, credit, because he's right. We should uphold, and it's according to the law, I think. Although what's her name said that it's fuzzy there. Justices are supposed to be non-influenced. They're kind of supposed to be isolated. But I do err on the side of freedom of speech, and I like that these people are exposing how evil they are.
By standing outside someone's house with a placard, that's evil.
No, that's not evil. The subject matter that they're doing and the intimidation that they're trying to push is evil.
Killing babies is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. Yeah,
right.
Cool. Awesome.
Turk.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in y'all's take on this perspective. You know, I've presented you guys the code that a lot of these are arguably violating against. Wouldn't that also consider these types of court justices, people that work in the courts, and those types of people a protected class in these particular sorts of instances? Don't we try to adhere to the law in those sorts of instances, or do we just selectively choose which laws when it comes to a protected air quote class? Of course, this is a stretch, because this is hippy dippy, right?
They've already made certain. I mean, unless that's what Maddie explained, that like the precedent as to what is considered. Can you repeat what you said earlier, Maddie? Sorry. About the expansion of the code in question.
It can't be a protected class, can it? Realistically, because it's a profession. Like you can just choose not to be a judge.
Loose air quote. I'll give
They're protected people. They're protected people nonetheless.
Yeah, defining a class, you could not extend the language in which we've used to define classes historically, which are more like immutable characteristics, than they are like professions.
That's why things like Blue Lives Matter don't make any sense, because you're not born a police officer.
When he's saying protected class, I think it'd be more easily defined as protected people. A judge is a protected person. A witness in a case is a protected person. A juror in a case is a protected person.
Hang on. So okay. So Sprout, I guess to the best of your ability, how would you define protected person? What would be your definition of protected person?
Whatever positions are legally protected, such as witness, juror, judge. These positions, if someone is in them currently, are protected. I'm not saying to extend past their judgeship. If they gave up judgeship, then this protection would no longer exist because they're no longer a judge. If the case is over and this person is no longer a witness, then the protection no longer exists because they're no longer a witness in a court case.
It would be like if you picket the outside the hotel that the jury is at, and they're still trying to decide the case and they've been sequestered. It's a similar situation because the case has been heard for the Supreme Court. They're in the process of finding the final judgment and the actual wording of the words they're going to put out. So it's like they're still adjudicating this case, that it's ongoing.
Are they still protesting outside homes?
To answer.
When's the last
I don't think no one's going to be able to answer that question, unfortunately.
I don't know.
I'm really
But in terms of you saying like it's not reached its final thing, well, in that case, you couldn't realistically campaign ever outside the homes because they're always going to be deciding something. So would you have to have restrictions on what you could protest outside someone's house?
I don't think you should be able to protest outside a judge's house. Period.
That's fine. But as to the point that I've forgotten your name, apologies, Turk made. It's sort of
pretty clear with the intent of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or officer in discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in the near building, blah, 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 blah.
How would you discern
it's not specific to the case that they're doing? It probably has that implied, but it's a pretty global and broad.
So you could only ever under that situation, then, if the law were to change, the point you're making, you could only ever protest something that's already been decided, which seems rather pointless. So basically, completely neutering people's right of protest.
So go protest in a different area on this particular
where you'll have absolutely no impact. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, there's plenty of social impact that happens. You see it, people going outside of the White House, or you see people outside of.
These people are not. Listen to the way you're protecting these people. They're not fucking kings. These are not like. This is not their fiefdom. Yeah, but I'm saying the code is fucking dumb, and you're licking boot here.
Also, that
Wait, what
code
code
is
is dumb?
like intended for, and that, I think this was to answer Joe's question before. Was I was saying, it's tough. There's a bit of a gray area when we're thinking about extending that prohibition to the Supreme Court because it's intended for criminal courts. So when there's like ongoing proceedings where they haven't come down with a verdict, and in the Supreme Court, it just operates slightly differently. So there is a bit of a legal gray area in terms of whether that particular article can be extended in this case. I think that's why this was taken up by the Senate to provide like extra protections because of those ongoing questions.
I want to interject.
Yeah, Bryce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Just change
I want
angles? What
to. I
the
want to
fuck?
say,
He's
no
a pro.
matter,
It's like,
no matter what we're talking about here, we should still like, even though we should probably discourage people from doing certain things like protesting right in front of somebody's house, protesting, blocking driveways and stuff like that. We want to still like codify. The main thing we want to codify is like the protesting, the rights, and like the things that enshrine the freedom and capability, the capacity to protest and actually like have yourself be heard. But we don't want to like codify that like you can't do it here and just have this huge ass list of everything. We want to just like discourage people from like disrupting shit.
We already do
because-
though. We already have
No,
the
no,
list.
hang on. One sec. But yeah, obviously, like we do. But that's why I think like, it's largely fine. Like I think when we look at most of the instances where people have protested outside of homes, you have, as long as it's like largely peaceful and you're not disrupting like somebody's actual transportation, then who the fuck cares? Like the protesting is probably not going to do that much because the protesting that will actually be impactful is probably going to be in the public sphere, like in the traditional public forum. So if somebody just wants to do it to feel better or whatever, who the fuck cares? Like, go let them.
So what if
set up.
so what if the Supreme Court justice's family doesn't feel secure? Which I'm sure is a concern when there's a protest outside the house.
I don't disagree. Wait. What's like? Actually, thank you for reminding me of the other thing I wanted to say. I don't think that there's any problem whatsoever with having particular people in public service that are identified as being like sensitive or vulnerable and having some kind of like security accommodation along with that. So if you're in like a really, really high stakes, maybe that's the phrase, like some like really controversial case where there's a lot on the line, maybe it involves like the cartels or something, where like in that particular instance, like okay, yeah, like there's actually some like security concerns, right? Like they have like the U.S. Marshals. I think somebody in my chat said like something with the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals are probably the ones that are like assessing the threats to the Supreme Court's judges. So they probably have people trying to figure out like, does he need help? And that should be fine.
Also, it's interesting to me again the juxtaposition between how we're supposed to care about the Supreme Court judge feeling uncomfortable. You didn't really seem to care that much about the kids in the schools feeling fucking uncomfortable by going to essentially a kind of prisonified school. That's just perfectly normal, apparently.
Wait, a metal detector.
Okay.
So 1 point entry and 1 point exit.
Wait. Okay, we said I didn't clarify this at the start. But the last time you can talk about the last topic is at the start of this topic during intro segments. I don't want to start meshing topics.
I understand. I understand that, Dylan. But
Yeah.
Kevin's been doing it the entire time, and then just when I respond to it, it seems to be an issue.
Well, no. I was trying to. That was a comment directed towards Kevin.
Left wing bias.
Okay.
Left wing bias.
That was but
It's not real.
Plus, we need to wrap up this topic anyway. If we're gonna have to skip the baby formula topic, which I don't know if anybody wants to do that.
I would love to talk about baby formula actually, but that's just me.
Okay.
Unironically, actually.
Okay. So we're good wrapping up, everybody? Okay, ending statements. We're gonna start with Bryce. Quick, very quick.
All right, really quick and simple. I think protesting right now, by and large, is pretty much okay. We want to protect the actual freedom and right to do it, but we just want to discourage things a little more like culturally, like through like soft power, like not codify something that we'll probably regret in the future.
Okay, next is gonna be Hake.
I think the backdrop to this is that there are new lines being crossed that seem shocking to people. There's a lot of just on a common sense. So a lot of people's sense of common sense, if you will, it seems wrong to be trying to protest and intimidate and change the mind of the Supreme Court justices. And I notice, although I'm not necessarily against it, I noticed that they're targeting more, not so much Alito, because there's no real chance of changing Alito's mind. He's a solid guy. But they're going after the weak links, like Amy Barrett and Kavanaugh, the ones who are more like kiss-up types. But even those, we'll see what happens. But the backdrop is that they being the local powers and the national powers, the states, allowed an insurrection across the country with the Black Lives Matter destruction and intimidation and just going out of control. That does, I think, that politics does affect the courts. And it's been allowed and propped up by the media in half the country.
Hey, in what manner is Kavanaugh minded? How is his mind?
He is definitely female-minded. He likes beer, and that is weak. And then he just turned around and started kissing up after he got hammered. He's very female-minded.
Okay. I'm going to throw it over
to Rhino.
I'm going to throw it over.
Like, is that okay thing to say?
I can throw it over to you, Maddie, next if you want to respond to that.
I'd rather not respond to that, but like, I guess that's an acceptable thing to just like say on this panel, is refer to like women as inferior, but that's cool. Yeah, so protesting in front of judges' houses, the Supreme Court, I think it's fine. I think people should continue to exercise their right to free speech, their right to freedom of assembly. I think as long as they are not directly like physically threatening, like assaulting that SCOTUS judge's family or the SCOTUS judge themselves, they're not like throwing bricks at their window or assaulting any of their private property, they absolutely have a right to be there. And I know that everyone's so concerned about whether or not they feel uncomfortable, which is so weird coming from the fuck your feelings crowd, that you all of a sudden are so concerned about feelings. You didn't really seem that concerned about my feelings when you were totally okay with getting rid of buffer zones at abortion clinics. No, it's totally fine to harass people getting health care, but those poor judges' families in those affluent DC suburbs, they're the real victims. And it's just very cute. And that's all that I have to say from my fucking female brain.
I wasn't saying you were inferior. I was just saying that women have a different role.
Stop.
Yeah, we heard you.
No interrupting any statements.
Okay.
No worries.
That's the issue with that statement.
We're gonna throw it over to Sprout. You can say the issue for the statement if you want to a new ending, Sprout.
No, I was just laughing that was the reason it got cut off. Anyways, I would disagree with getting rid of the buffer zone for abortion clinics. I think there should be a buffer zone. I don't know why, like, the things that are. I guess it may just be a me thing. When Republicans vote for something, it seems to be that I feel like when someone brings up a panel, it's like they're referring to me. But either way, I think that justices shouldn't have people protesting outside their house. The law agrees with me. I also don't think witnesses in a court case should have people protesting outside their house. The law agrees with me. I also don't think jurors should have people protesting outside where they reside while they're a juror, and the law agrees with me. So I don't know why people think that justices should have any less protection than the witness or the juror.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Turk.
So here's a fun little logic train. Follow me if you can. I think it would be excellent if one of these protesters got prosecuted under the particular U.S. code that I keep mentioning here because it is law. It should be executed or prosecuted, like Hake was mentioning earlier. But that protester decides to appeal it, right? And it goes to a federal appeals court. And they say, nope, you're not good. And they decide to appeal it another way. And then it ends up going to the Supreme Court, who then gets to decide if you're allowed to actually go and protest outside of their house. I'm really curious how they would actually go ahead and vote on that, because then that would set the precedent, and this would be a open and shut case. I think that's a really good logic train. We should all do it.
Okay, I'm going to now throw it over. I don't think I got everyone. Kevin, did I get you? I don't think I did I?
You did not get me, no.
Okay, Kevin.
Okay. I just want to say I agree with Hake that women are not mentally inferior, and I would actually argue he is an example quite to the contrary on that point, but never mind. In terms of this particular topic. It seems really odd to me as a fine denizen of the United Cookdom, where we do have a monarchy and we do have laws about protesting outside of powerful people's fucking homes, that I'm the one having to tell the Americans in the land of the free and the home of the brave to stop cocking themselves to these powerful pricks. They're not kings. They don't fucking run you. You can go outside their home and protest as long as you're not doing any actual violence to them. So what if they feel uncomfortable? They should fucking feel uncomfortable. They're ruining the country. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm done. Hake, you're a knob.
Joe Lewis?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Heem, I think you already went, Heem?
Yeah, I didn't go. No, I didn't go yet.
Okay.
Oh, can I go? Okay. You gonna think about it?
Yeah, I'll think about it. Okay, you can go.
All right. Listen, I'm categorically against protesting outside of politicians' homes. I think, as I said before, I'm going to repeat. It's very similar to me as the people who went to Ottawa and protested outside of people's homes for a month. I think when people go home, they should be able to, as soy as it sounds, it should be kind of like a safe space for them and their family. And I think that protesting, agitating them in public, because they're public officials, agitating them in public is the way to do it. Go agitate them at a restaurant, agitate them at the theater, agitate them at wherever you want, but leave the home out of it, because they have family who lives there, kids who have nothing to do with what their parents are, up to. And yeah, that's my take here.
Okay, we're now going to move on to the last topic of the night, which is the baby formula shortage. So, my question to everyone is simple. Why do you think is causing it? And how do we fix it? Very simple. We've got a good 38 minutes if we wanted to end this on time left in the show. So, short intros if we can. I'm going to start with Turk.
Sorry, my internet's cutting out. You said me, right?
Yes.
Cool. So, having had 3 kids that have all used baby formula, I am completely on the same level as a lot of people that are having problems sourcing their formula for their children. I really wish that the FDA would get out of the way and maybe loosen up their regulational powers towards getting some more domestic production going on. I think I was watching the Fox News that there was actually a panel. It was like a 4-hour long thing where they were saying, like, we know the problems here. We're trying to address the immediate issues. But if we were to ramp up immediately in order to account for this, we would have an oversupply of formula. So it's like we're trying our best to do this. I just really wish the government would have gotten out of the way. I understand there was a couple, 4, I believe, deaths of the particular formula that caused the massive extraction recall of the formula that was on the shelves, and that was probably one of the biggest things. I don't like the government. Like Joe said earlier, I think they need to loosen up and let us actually make things and solve problems.
Bro.
I think the FDA screwed this up entirely. I can't think of what the word is. But anyways, there's been. I think the White House needs to apply what they did during COVID to create hand sanitizer to baby formula to use to retool factories and stuff like that to make baby formula. But the FDA screwed this up entirely due to evidently a mailing issue. The 34-page report took 4 months to get to the desk of somewhere else, and they didn't alert the White House at all before they shut down the factory. The FDA really screwed this up. So most of the blame belongs to the FDA.
I'm going to throw it over to Maddie.
So funny how regulations are the real villain here. The reason the Abbott factory in Michigan was shut down that produced that baby formula was because tainted boar baby formula from that factory, because of their lax safety protocols, resulted in the deaths of 2 babies and caused sicknesses in others. And a lot of the reason why we're seeing this happen a lot more is because under the Trump administration, they reduced funding for a number of these agencies that are specifically tasked with enforcing safety protocols in manufacturing plants. So even though there are certain protocols in place to ensure that the production of these goods won't lead to harming customers, they can't effectively enforce that and have the kind of oversight that would be needed. You know, there used to be a time in our country's history where deaths from tainted product happened far more frequently. There's a reason why we have these safety protocols in place, and it's to protect people's lives and ensure that when you as a customer go to the store and you buy a product, you can be confident that what you're buying is not going to kill you and is not going to be harmful or tainted in some way because it is past inspections. So I would say that defunding of the oversight function is one of the biggest issues that is leading to the baby formula shortage. I would also say this is kind of exemplifying of the dangers of monopolies. When you have a power like Abbott, where they produce, there's only 3 producers of formula in the entire United States? 4. Yeah, that's a massive issue when you look at just like the economics of it, because it allows for no volatility. Any volatility at any stage of that product life cycle is going to result in devastating effects once you pass on to consumers downstream. So like that is really bad. And I agree with Sprout. I think the White House should, I believe they did this, or he signed an executive order that is like essentially effectively using I think it's called the War Powers.
It's defense something. It's something
Yeah.
defense.
And I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Is
but
the Defense Procurement Act?
Procurement, thank you. Of course, the non-American knows.
Lot interrupting in this topic.
That's okay. I'm a woman. I'm used to it.
I was clarifying. I wasn't interrupting.
No, Kevin, you're sexist. I'm sorry.
Well, that is also true, but irrelevant to the point.
Dylan, I was saying I wanted to go first during open.
Oh,
that's all.
Gotcha.
I mean, I will get into it. We'll get into the rest of it later. But I would say those are 2 main things that I've taken away from this. And people saying that women should just breastfeed are fucking stupid and have never met women or have any knowledge of like what that entails and why some women don't.
Mm-hmm. Now to get the opinion on this issue that affects women everywhere. The Hake Report.
Nice. I did read that in addition to the factory shutdowns, that there were supply chain issues that were not helping. I know that we don't really bring in. I heard that we don't bring in a lot of formula from out of the states, although I don't know that our standards on what formula is acceptable is right or not. I think that women do need to get their diet right and whatever that they can do so that they are producing milk so that they can feed their children. I do understand that there's issues that come up. I have heard that there are co-ops for actual breast milk, because I've heard that there are a lot of benefits to actual breast milk over the formula. And I suspect that there's a lot of vain ladies who just don't want to get saggy or whatever, or they're into the work thing, and it's been very destructive. But anyway, that would be part of the solution to safeguards, because God made us. Anyway, that's about my statement.
Logan, you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I literally asked my chat before Hate got going how this was going to be women's fault, and I didn't think that saggy tits and diet were going to be the thing, but whatever, I mean, co-ops, that's also, is that titty communism you're asking for here now? I don't know. We'll wait and say. Look, there's a number of problems. The FDA probably didn't handle this particularly well, although the argument that in trying to enforce safety standards so children don't die because of poisonings from these plants, that's somehow like a bad thing. That's ridiculous. There's a reason that people used to get like poisoned by very, very simple meals back in 1900, and they don't now because there's safety rules in place. Now, are they the right safety rules? That can be discussed. I'm not going to profess to be an FDA fucking expert or anything. But another problem, as Maddie raised, was the fact that there are 4 companies that monopolize, or I suppose quadruplize, the industry, and Abbott being one has over 40% of market share, which means basically if one company completely fucks things up, as they did, you're going to have massive problems, and that it is not a long-term sustainable solution. And as with so many industries in America and indeed the Western world, like banks and other things, they need to be broken up because they are too big to fail, and failing means children starving, and that's not okay.
Joe Lewis?
Woo, baby! we need. I'm not gonna meme. Okay, so no matter how you like introduce this problem, the only correct solution ahead is to get the factory back online. Thankfully, that's going to happen on June 4th. So that's something. But the long term goal, oh, here we go. So my take is going to be so fucking boring and nuanced, and none of you are going to engage with it. So I'm so excited. So, one long term goal for the US could be to seek collaboration with countries and online distributors like Amazon, Costco, CVS, Kroger, Sam's Club to provide FDA approved and compliant labeling that ships alongside formula that meets FDA nutrition standards but fails the labeling guidelines, which this country, for example, like Mexico, fails. We can also make that available for families via PDF or even physically at the point of sale, so that when you have these products that have proper labeling, you're getting the proper labeling with that particular piece of formula. Another long-term goal, I believe, should be opening up the market away from Nestle, Abbott, and Reckitt Precursor, for example, because those three companies, even though we mentioned four, there's three companies that own over 90% of the market share of baby formula. And also, another fun fact of the baby formula that we consume and purchase in the United States, 98% of that is domestic. So we should probably open it up to other countries, like I mentioned, like that have FDA compliant nutritional standards, but they fail in the process of labeling. And then we also have to decouple the relationship that these companies have with WIC, because WIC provides a 15% reimbursement to those four companies for baby formula products and baby formula adjacent, and that's a huge cut. So basically the point is, make proper labeling for the companies internationally so that they can communicate with the market, and then gradually decouple and allow new businesses to enter in the market to receive the same type of benefits from WIC. That's also going to require a mass expansion of how baby formula is produced in the United States and internationally. But that's a very boring thing that no one's going to engage with. So I'm excited to hear everybody's shit takes on baby formula.
Him.
Yeah, so there's like three major things, right? It was the bacteria, it was COVID as well. I don't think anyone really I think Hake actually talked a little bit about the supply chain. So in many states, like half of the formulas are sold out right now. And a part of that has to do with an increase in people having babies in the last year. People have been stockpiling the baby formula, similarly to the toilet paper, and there's also been an increase in demand because of the increase in babies. And when people stockpiled, there was a decrease in demand. So the production is all. What I was reading was that they're having a hard time gauging the amount of production that they need to have to adequately supply it. Now, as for the FDA regulations, so right now, one of the big problems is that they're banning, they're not allowing sales of European formula. And nevertheless, though, one study found that the European formulas meet the FDA nutritional guidelines, and in some ways might even be better than American formula, because the European Union bans certain sugars such as corn syrup and requires formulas to have a higher share of lactose. So it seems to be a kind of, and I know a lot of it had to do with the USMCA, the Donald Trump North America Trade Agreement, and that one actively discourages formula imports from the largest trading partner to the United States, which is Canada. And a lot of you guys mentioned about how there's a monopoly. When it comes to the monopoly issue, I don't really know if things like vaccines or baby formula, I don't know if having large corporations producing these things is necessarily a bad thing, because most babies have the similar nutritional requirements in the same way that vaccines, should be produced, regulated. I think having large corporations run these things can actually increase efficiency and have better distribution. It's just that the solution isn't to do protectionist policies like Trump did. It's to actually have more globalist policies and engage with other countries and have trade be more free flowing so that you can quickly meet demand when it changes. So yeah, globalism based protectionism cringe.
Okay, and next is Bryce before we have a short discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Heem covered on a few things I want to talk about. I think my overarching vibe or thought is that a lot of this shit seems to be okay. It's like Americans are jumping in front of it, they're handling it, they're tackling it, but it seems to be largely caused by things that are outside of like the political voting, I guess, options. But it seems like it is still polarized yet again because I saw that there are a bunch of House Republicans that voted against that measure that gave $28 million in emergency funding. And like they're always trying to make this shit into like a partisan issue. And to me, I'm just thinking like, this is a something that happened as a result of COVID, as a result of Trump's deal with UMAC or whatever the fuck you want to call it, the tariffs, the tariff rate quotas, the market concentration into an oligopoly, which is what they are. Like they're multiple sellers, and they have a disproportionate amount of the market share that influences the capacity for the market to actually be in perfect competition. So there's all kinds of like bad shit that's happening economically, and I don't see why this has to be such a divisive issue with Americans. Like, what? Just get your shit together and like vote to like deal with this situation. It sucks. Something that that affected the supply of something really, really important to us, feeding babies, has happened. And I don't know why Americans have to make this into like such a huge deal and just can't work together and like fix it. It boggles my mind.
Okay, now we're open. It seems that both Sprout and Turk wants the opening statement, so
Could you put me on the list as well?
Yeah, so basically, I heard a lot that we wish that we would allow foreign countries to be shipping in these goods in order to solve a supply constraint, a production constraint, etc., and that we wish that the labeling requirements weren't as stringent in order to allow access to more supplies and all that stuff to come in. Is that an accurate take of what many people on the panel said?
You don't
That
even
was just
need,
my take.
You don't even need that. I mean, you don't even need that though, Turk. The idea that the FDA failed to get it onto the desk of what desk would they supposed to get on? The proper desk. So it took 34 page report took 4 months to reach the proper desk because of a quote unquote mailing issue. At that point, several infants had already been sickened by the tainted formula from the plant, which was shut down in February. Then the mailroom mix-up was only one example how the FDA screwed up. The FDA knew that ordering a shutdown at the Abbott plant would create supply problems, and they did not alert the White House of the potential shortages at first. So according to the House Appropriations Committee chair, Rosa DeLauro, the FDA at every step of this process dropped the ball.
I think it's worth pointing out that the thing that he mentioned is one that I really, really wanted to talk about because I think it's probably one of the bigger things that affected this. Those tariffs and like the tariff rate quotas and everything importing stuff, like as Turk tried to like broach an issue with it, like those really fuck America's ability to bring stuff in.
I saw an article from 3 years, or from 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years ago when the USMCA passed. Someone wrote an article predicting that there would be a baby formula shortage because of this exact thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a Cato
yeah.
article. There's a Cato article that says the only reason why this got introduced as like a component of USMCA was because there's a rumor that China might have been building a formula factory in Ontario.
Canada lobbied for that, though. That was their argument. And also, Canada was never in the baby formula game, and their baby formula is subsidized by your government. So they have restrictions that are just as the same, if not more restrictive than the United States.
But the point is like you have a formula producing country that is like your closest trading partner,
Yes, and they were
the
never in the
decision.
formula
No,
game
wait,
for
wait, wait,
decades.
wait. One sec. The decision to, instead of going down the avenue of like, your baby formula product or whatever is a little bit different. Like, let's have conversations about how to update this. Like, how do you meet our like health standards? Blah blah blah. To get something that they could cross the border, they're just like, oh shit, wait, you might get something from like China. All right, no, fuck you. Like, we're gonna make this so, because it wasn't just like we're not gonna buy any of your formula, or like we can't, like there's health
Yeah,
problems,
but
whatever. They were literally like, here's a bunch of tariffs and
right.
tariff rate quotas to make it so expensive that it's not a direct fuck you. It's not a direct, we're not gonna buy your shit. It's literally, we're gonna fuck you because we want to make it so difficult for you to be in this market that you won't be in this market.
Bryce, but I don't think you really engaged with what I said. I'll try to say it again because maybe I didn't make it
Go for it.
clear. Canada's formula is subsidized by your government. They have never been in the baby formula game and have no intention to be. However, Mexico has compliant FDA that's compliant with FDA nutrition requirements, but the labeling is improper. So you could say that America may have dropped the ball with Mexico to open up expansion to bringing baby formula into the United States. But to be fair, Canada and the United States are both out of the baby formula game internationally. They're specifically domestic advocates of this. Like, it's Canada first in Canada and America first in America. So I guess like the thing that I'm confused about is if we're looking for the expansion of like globalism, Canada's on the hook as well, if not more so, because they're in the same problem as the United States.
Yeah, sure. The idea is that a contributing factor to America's problem is that you have things like these legislations, right? Like, it's not just Canada that there's like a weird arrangement with. You mentioned Mexico, like the EU.
No, it's not. It's not a weird arrangement with Mexico. It's a weird relationship with Canada, United States, and the rest of the world. It's a two country problem, not a multifaceted.
No,
there
okay.
are
The reason why
European
it's
countries.
the reason why I mentioned America, Canada, and Mexico is because it's a USMCA specific thing, right? These
Correct, and they
tariffs and
both
the
fuck
tariff rate
Mexico
quotas.
because of baby formula. Like,
Okay.
Mexico wanted to be in the game of distribution of baby formula in Canada and the United States, and they both said no. And they both have a lot of a reason for that, because Canada, like I mentioned again, I'll say it again, Canada's formula is subsidized by the United States government. The United States government has 4 companies all lobbying towards WIC, because WIC takes a 15% reimbursement for them, and there's 4 companies have a monopoly of 100% of the supply. So there's no incentive for other companies to get into the game of baby formula, because both the United States and Canada are very, very segregationist with their policies on this.
But
Yeah,
but I think what Bryce is saying is we're already exporting.
You're not.
Already exporting. We are to China. For a
But
Kingston,
no.
Ontario plant is exporting its baby formula to China.
I don't think you're engaging with what I said at the initial. That the reason why they cracked down within the agreement was because Canada did not want a company from China in Canada. So they created restrictions, deeper restrictions. That's literally what he mentioned from the thing he cited from Cato. If you expand on that and read a little bit further into other articles with that, because multiple different scholars cite that one study and there's multiple others, it's the exact same thing, that they didn't want to plant in China. They didn't want a plant from China in Canada.
But that exists now. I'm confused. What your point is?
Canadian formula is subsidized by your government, and the Mexican-Canada agreement introduced further restrictions on formula to protect domestic production.
For America.
Just so
No. What's domestic production? It's more than just America.
It depends who you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay,
do research on this. I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, so there's a problem that I have with that is that we were still considering, like, as much as Canada may have had different conversations with regards to like shutting that previous plant down or like whatever it was, but the problem that I'm trying to broach is that there are still this red tape and these artificial mechanisms that discourage market entry, right? I think you even mentioned that there's
sure.
like so everything is like economic in nature, right? Let's just say everything, not everything. The majority of this stuff is economic in nature, right? A lot of this stuff is are things that you could have a bit, like, I'm not saying you get every single bit of formula that you needed that you're lacking from Canada or the EU. Maybe the majority of it does come from Mexico. I don't give a fuck where it comes from. The problem that I have is that there is literally part of the legislation in USMCA tariffs and tariff rate quotas on baby formula in response to something like this, right?
Sure, but the US, and like, I'm not to keep going. I'm sorry, and I caught you on the back
No,
end.
it's okay. I'm just that's literally it. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to isolate it so that we don't like conflate it with other things or like abstract
Sure.
it, whatever. I'm trying to say that it's specifically that it's this tariff and tariff rate quota, which are not always bad, but majority of the time they are a really bad economic decision. So there's clearly something in this like very specific thing, not everything, right? Like not
Mhm.
every detail of the story.
Right, and I would also argue that something that's a very economic reckless decision is to actually have lean and sufficient supply chains in this case. Because, and I'll break this down as the best I can.
Hey, no,
So,
that's fine. I mean, like, if you want
you
to
know,
talk about like an idea like breaking the company up so it can actually serve regional areas.
oh no, that's not what I'm saying.
Like,
I'm saying that lean and efficient supply chains cause the shortage, and I can explain that. So
oh, okay.
when you have a lean and efficient supply chain, that's great, but it can create disruptions. So if you have a surge of demand or a drop in supply, different shortages can happen. For
Like
example,
gasoline.
a lot of parents were stockpiling on things because of the pandemic, including baby formula, right? So now you have this surge in demand, very high surge. And now we're at this point where it's a drop off. So now it's going to take a while for those mothers to plow through that formula that they accumulated during the pandemic. So that's going to create a disruption when it's finally like, okay, you guys need to buy baby formula now. Like COVID's over, and it's like, well, they're still in the stockpile with that. Now we're in a situation where because you can't produce and maintain baby formula the same way that you would gasoline, there's different sort of problems when you have a lean supply, like a very lean sufficient supply chain in the context of baby formula versus other products. I tried my best there in both because I had to burp, but something that I do think is really frustrating is that WIC encourages that because of their 15% reimbursement. So all of these companies are going to have clean and efficient supply chains, and WIC encourages that with the percentage of reimbursement. But there's no other way for companies that might potentially alleviate the supply chain problems to enter into the market because the facilities are so streamlined. So you can have a startup that has the ability to produce baby formula, but they don't have enough to justify or even have the cost to enter into the market in the first place. So the only people who are allowed to produce baby formula in the United States are these 4 companies, and this is why we're having a lot of these issues.
It's almost like having the capital and the means to produce a mainstream commodity is a very difficult and challenging business, and we should actually enable.
No, they're just greedy.
more companies.
They're
to-
just greedy.
Great if
They're
like
just
we
greedy.
funded it.
They're
Yeah,
just greedy. They're
I
just
think
greedy.
someone in my chat brought up this sort of wrinkle to this that I found really interesting, and they say, it feels like baby formula maybe should be thought of as a national security issue when you think that it is largely responsible for the health and well-being of a gigantic swath of our youth population. And calling that maybe would ensure that it gets the funding I need. There are other things in our country that get government subsidies because the government knows that this is vital to the prosperity and health and wellness of the country. Agriculture is a great example of that, but there are other industries where they are essentially given that capital that otherwise might make production kind of cost prohibitive. And we're talking about the sort of trade issues that come up with regard to Canada and other things. I mean, the reason a lot of those policies here implemented, it's intended to boost domestic production and to benefit domestic companies. The problem is that when you have only a few giant producers, it doesn't work as intended. That really is something where if you think of like the classical perfect competition model for supply and demand, like then it would function as intended. But because we're so vulnerable to any possible volatility in our supply chain, maybe we should start thinking about, well, if we think of this as an absolute necessity, this is a commodity that is vital to the well-being of our country, maybe we should start thinking more about reducing those barriers to entry in that particular market.
Yeah, and
Aren't
I
the
wanna-
barriers
I
of
wanna
entry
that could be a really good idea.
I want-
That
I-
could be a really good. Wait one sec.
Sure.
I think that could be a really good idea, Mads. I think maybe if we take some steps to like reduce the barrier to entry, like these companies could enter the market, and you would increase the competition, right? Like we always want to try to strive towards perfect competition. It's the journey towards perfect competition that we want to engage in. But I also wonder, like, maybe we should try to think outside of the box a little bit, right? Like we've probably said the same shit that other politicians have said on the same issue in the last like month or so. Maybe we got to think outside the box a little bit. Maybe we got to come up with like a baby daycare gladiator thing, right? Where like the babies fight to the death and the baby that wins or survives gets like a lifetime supply of formula, right? And obviously like get some entertainment out of it.
Bryce brought up the political division that this thing has caused, or been a part of, really been an excuse for. And earlier this week or last week on Twitter, they were trending 192 Republicans voted against saving the baby formula crisis. But I think that that was a cheap gotcha, and it shows that the Democrats also don't really want to solve it, because they would have known that those Republicans would not have wanted to vote for whatever they were trying to stuff down the throats. So
Well, Hank,
that's true. That's
Hank,
so
it's just
true.
greed.
Hank.
It's just
No,
greed. Like, why are we trying to paint this like it's some like magical picture of like
it's greed,
bipartisanship?
but it's also
just-
a politics
It's
game.
not-
It's
it's greed.
it's
Hold
not
on, hold on.
just
I gotta set a floor for something here before you guys engage in it, because I
Go for
don't
it.
think you really understand like how big, how deep this is, which is so
Big
fucked.
formula.
Like it's like some like the it's like baby formula is the thing that shows that markets are fucking dog shit. Like WIC reimburses companies at 15% of the wholesale cost. And you want to know something crazy? They're responsible for 92% of supermarket sales of milk-based powder formula between 12 and 16 ounces, which is WIC compliant, oddly enough. And they're 51% of all sales in other sizes. That's incredible. And you now have this government agency who, through an unintended consequence, creating de facto monopolies in every single state, whether it be Abbott, whether it be Nestle, whether it be Beckett, and that's going to create problems when one facility in Michigan goes down and everybody's fucked. And then on top of that, like the way that WIC is currently funding this makes us at the big three, in this case the big four, if you want to count the fourth company's name I don't remember right now. It makes it difficult for any startup to have any like significant inroad in the baby formula industry, because investments crushed by the capturing the market share.
Can I just
And
say,
then on top of that,
Wait, let him finish quickly.
It's the last thing, and limited facilities that approve for production for baby formula lead to startups not having the volume required to even produce in those facilities. So even if you wanted to have a different company step in and heed the to heed the call to produce baby formula while Abbott gets her shit together, they don't have the inroads and requirements or the volume required to even be able to exist in those companies. So you not only have policies. You'd only introduce policies that will reduce the limits to allow people who can only produce a small amount in these facilities, which those four companies are going to fight. And you're also going to have to expand long term to create the building of more baby formula facilities, which those four companies are going to fight.
Yeah, that's commie capitalism for you.
Hear me out on this one. I've been pretty quiet with this topic.
Kevin.
All right, so hear me out on this one. We could actually talk about what caused this. And we could talk about the Food and Drug Administration failing on all counts to try and stop any kind of shortage with this going on. The Food and Drug Administration, according to the committee chair, the House Appropriations Committee chair, the FDA dropped the ball on all counts. We could actually talk about the substance of this, or we could go off about tariffs again.
I mean, the tariffs on imports is as high as 17.5%. 17.5%. And that's just based on volume. So God forbid, like you're trying to solve a crisis and you want to interact with countries internationally and say, hey, can you help us with our baby shortage? Oh, by the way, there's a potential that you might get tariffed by almost 18%. Do you still want to help us? Oh, but and then countries go, great. If you reduce those tariffs, we'll help you. Like, well, you don't want to really do that. Like there's and again, we've known this for decades. Like this baby formula problem has been a problem that we've known since the 90s.
So
like,
back to tariffs, right? All right.
No, it's not.
No,
No,
you
not
mentioned
that
WIC
tariffs.
too. You
I'm
mentioned
saying
WIC
Can I ask you? Can I ask you? FDA is a safety thing. They're not gonna. How are they gonna change production? You know what I mean? How do you expect
So
them to know about the supply
it's
and
very.
demand?
I mean, I said it. I said it
Wait,
in my
wait,
opening.
one at a time. Who is that question directed towards him?
I asked it to Sprout. Because he's saying
Sprout gets to
FDA
respond.
should have been able to control the short or like.
Also,
predict
have
the shortage coming. I'm
Kevin,
just wondering what kind of.
Hake, and
Yeah.
Turk written down. Sprout, you can respond. I'll write you down too, Joe.
Seems like it's a tariff issue, is what I'm saying.
So
Yeah,
according to testimony in Congress, there was a 34-page report that took 4 months to reach the proper desk at FDA because of a quote unquote mailroom or issue or a mail issue. That should have closed it sooner before there was infants getting sick. Second off, the FDA then screwed up their response to the plant's problems in testimony to Congress, so the agency was too slow at the start and suboptimal on the way. Third off, the FDA knew that ordering a shutdown at the Abbott plant would create supply problems, but had no choice. I agree, they had no choice with the facility conditions. But despite that, he said the agency did not alert the White House of the potential shortages at first. If the White House was alerted of this, they would have been able to be more proactive instead of reactive about baby formula shortages.
But Sprout, they don't give
but the FDA even if they make the suggestion, right? Like you have to pass like trade legislation with other countries, like international trade treaties, in order to be able to reverse these tariffs and whatnot. Like
we would be months ahead.
we
would be months ahead if the FDA didn't fuck it up as bad as they did.
Okay, so it's not just the FDA. The FDA has a bare responsibility, but the United States government, I want to make it very clear. They're like WIC is getting a 15% cut on wholesale cost. That's a government agency. They don't give a fuck about any of your argument. They don't give a fuck. They are still making money, and all of these companies are still making money, so they don't give a shit. Something that I do think the FDA could do, maybe, is interact with all of those countries. Let me rephrase this, interact with all the online retailers that have baby formula internationally that doesn't have compliant labeling, and give them and interact with them so that they have compliant labeling for American citizens. So parents like Turk can go online and go, oh, this baby formula doesn't have the compliant labeling, but if I'm really concerned, as a concerned parent should, here's the labeling that the FDA would require. They can interact with these companies that are making formula abroad that's FDA approved for nutrition, like the super formula in Europe. So then they don't get railroaded when they're like, I don't know what's in this exactly. So they have like the information to give it to consumers. That's why I mentioned it in my opening argument that you can do it at point of sale. You can make it available between PDF. There's a bunch of ways that you can do this in the shipping process or the point of sale process. But these companies don't give a fuck. So like this is asking the government to do something that's going to be good by people, and they're making 15% off wholesale costs, so they're not going to do it. But
like I said, if the FDA didn't fuck it up as bad, we'd be months ahead from where we are right now.
It's the FDA, USADA, it's the four companies, Nestle, Abbott, and Riker, and the other one I can't think of right now. Their hands are all dirty. It's a
how is Nestle supposed to know this is going to happen? How is Nestle supposed to know that Abbott was going to have this happen? How is Nestle supposed to know?
They can anticipate what would happen if one of our facilities in the states that we have a monopoly for goes under.
And they can anticipate what would happen, but they can't anticipate that it's
clearly.
They can anticipate that they can't anticipate like, oh, this is going to happen, so we need to ramp up production. They can't anticipate that.
But if they thought of it as an absolute necessary product, what they could do is they could have it as a higher priority. Should there, like with contingency plans in place, should there be a shortage through even if it's through no fault of their own or another country or a supply chain, whatever, like if you see that particular product as like a higher priority, what they're able to do then is have a contingency plan where they say, okay, should there be any fluctuation in supply, whatever, we have the processes in place to switch over production and make up for that market failing.
I agree. The White House should have been informed by the FDA, who probably had the contingency plan in
And
place.
They
to be able
knew
to
this
do
since
that.
they knew this since Bush
By your
Senior.
boy.
Okay, we gotta go through this list. We got 3 names on the list I want to hit before we start wrapping up with outros and shout outs. And that's Kevin, Hake, and Turk. So Kevin.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to a point that that Hake made because it's arguably the dumbest thing he or anyone has ever said. His point about it's the Democrats' fault for the Republicans not voting for a thing. Like, it's so unbelievably stupid. Well, the Democrats should just acquiesce to the fact that the Republicans are fucking insane and monsters who would deny $28 million, which is nothing, by the way. A drop in the American government could burn $28 million and it wouldn't make the slightest difference. And they still voted for it because fuck babies. You stupid, hungry babies. Pull yourself up by your fucking bootstraps. No, that's on the Republicans. They could just be not complete pieces of shit.
Nick, it's also your time to talk, and you could respond to that.
Okay, I mean, it just takes 2 to tango, and we all know that the Democrats are very dishonest. And I'm far be it from me to defend the rhino Republicans, because most of the Republicans are rhinos. They don't have our best interests at heart. So I don't take that away from Kevin. But I say that this, based on listening to what Sprout and Joe Lewis were saying, Sprouticus and Joe Lewis, we have this commie capitalism. We have a culture of incompetence among government employees and maybe even these big corporations who stay paid anyway. They don't care what happens because they don't lose their jobs. It's 911 is a joke. Same problem over in the shooting place, in the place where the shooting happened. So it sounds like WIC and FDA have been a corrupting influence, causing problems, artificially encouraging just-in-time, excessively just-in-time supply chain stuff, and colluding with the oligopoly that Bryce pointed out, these huge corporations in bed with the government to shut down startups and shut down competition. And then after we deal with that, maybe we can look at argue the wisdom of particular tariffs.
Turk, you're the last one.
Yeah, so I agree with what Joe's saying. I just look at it from a different perspective. I would love for more markets being available to deliver and provide product to the American people so that they can provide and consume these types of products. If there's a super formula that's got enough safety regulation in place, I think they should sell that at Whole Foods, and the Whole Foods mom should be able to go and buy that and eat that stuff up. Well, their kids. But at the same time, it's like, if someone over needs to go buy some formula at Walmart, they should be able to go and buy stuff that was produced in Mexico that doesn't have the necessary labeling requirements. I think that is a great thing. Rather than make everybody comply up to the American standard of certain types of things that may or may not actually add benefit towards safety or towards quality of a product, I think it might be a good economical thing to lower the barrier to entry to allow some of these products to enter the market. And I think by doing that, you can start to show some of these other manufacturers that, hey, there's other sources of this particular product. You might want to be a little more fair, more lenient in your fees or your upkicks or whatever. I don't know all the economics behind baby formula. I'm sorry. But I just think that by loosening regulations a bit, we don't have to go into the Stone Age and say, you can add sugar to water and you can give that to a kid. That's not where I'm saying to go. But I think if we lower regulations a bit, that's a good step in the right direction to solve an immediate problem.
Okay. We're now going to wrap up. That means ending statements and also shout outs. That means you shout out yourself. Thank you all for certainly an interesting edition of the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. But isn't it always interesting in some way? And that's exactly how we like it here. We're going to throw it over to Bryce.
Thank you. You're starting with the best. I get it at the very end. Listen, I think Kevin said something that really resonated with me. Those stupid fucking babies, dude. They're little shit machines, little sleep machines, bottomless pits for food. I feel like America needs more gamers, right? America needs more warriors. I could see all kinds of shit online where Americans love Spartans. Maybe this is an opportunity for America to really like increase that warrior population. I'm telling you, a Baby-Ator Coliseum where we have the babies fight to the death in some kind of gladiatorial contest, and the winner gets all the supply. You get 2 birds, 1 stone. Problem solved.
And they can find
you
you.
can yeah, sorry. You can find me at Bryce Live, BRYSLIVE. Yeah, I talk about all kinds of shit. Usually not this dumb.
Fantastic. I'm gonna throw it over to Heem.
Yo, good luck to all the babies out there. Good luck to all the moms, the single moms, the double moms, whatever. And this was a fun debate. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. I like shooting the shit and arguing about political issues. You can catch me at twitch.tv/Heem if you like lib takes and globalism and things of this nature. And check out my YouTube channel, pushing to 15K subs, under the same name. And love you guys, chat. Good job. You guys you need to sub to the channel, though, to Dylan's channel. I didn't see enough subs going around on today's stream, if we're being honest. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Well, thank you, Heem. I'm gonna throw it over to Maddie. God, this is a great point. I just wish I could hear it.
Sorry, I know my my computer. Okay. So, this was I actually particularly enjoyed the discussion about tariffs and some of the nuances of trade. As some of you know, my master's is in economics, so really, really delight in all that fun stuff. Didn't love talking about saggy tits at the start of the session, because just like what a bummer overall. And just tonight in general, I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of fucking misogyny, and it was kind of fucking startling. And we were talking about issues like gun control, which a lot of times is largely driven by like angry, violent men, and then talking about baby formula, which impacts women. And like oftentimes people in response to this are like, why don't you just breastfeed, you selfish slut? Like, let's punish single mothers. I don't know. It was a weird hippy dippy to be the only woman on. So yeah. Hi, I'm Maddie Cakes. I'm typically all sunshine and rainbows. And you can find me at MaddieCakes_ on Twitch, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Madsmaru, MADSMARU. And I just want to say that there were some people who were super based, and they know who they are. So yeah,
I appreciate that, Maddie.
Fantastic. We're gonna throw it over to Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wish I could kind of like explain in a much more longer form why his baby formula system is so fucked. But like generally, like some points that I mentioned earlier, like 98% of the formula is consumed. 98% of the formula is consumed in the United States. Excuse me, is produced domestically. And while there are facilities and so many other countries that meet FDA's nutrition standards, they fail to meet labeling guidelines, which prevents them from exporting into the United States. And some people may be like, Joe, why does that fucking matter? Because if you have improper labeling, the United States government will confiscate your shit. So they're not going to have baby formula that doesn't meet labeling requirements just flying over internationally. This is why I advocated for proper labeling that's the FDA gives to these companies to include in their shipments. Or you can make it so that it's available to PDF to customs officers so that they know that, like, hey, if this particular product is entering in the United States. We know that this is okay to give to the consumer. Additionally, there was some stuff on the supply chain that we didn't get to, but again, like the WIC program encourages lean supply chains because it reimburses 15% of the wholesale price, and that huge volume means that companies can still be profitable but lower their margins per sale, and that encourages a very efficient supply chain, which creates a fucking problem when you have parents who stockpile this shit, and then you have two things happening at the same time. You have families who are working through their formula supply due to COVID-19, and then you also have families, because of the recall, going out to buy baby formula from all the other companies. So that creates the shortage was inevitable if a plant is going to close like that. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. We probably shouldn't have 4 companies that are in control of something that parents need for their children. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it on the formula topic for my closing. You can follow me at twitch.tv/Joe Lewis. The name Joe is with 2 zeros, so JOOELEWIS. Bully your representatives to bully the FDA so that they can have labeling that's correspondent with our ridiculous United States standards, or this problem's going to happen again when something is contaminated.
Okay, I'm now going to throw it over to Sprout.
All right. Like I said, I think this is largely on the FDA. I think that there was a bunch of problems with how they operate within this. I think if the White House had more time to react to this, they could be more proactive than reactive. And this is what you get when it's reactive. You end up with a lot of failure. You end up with a lot of problems within society when you are being reactive governmentally. And so I think that the FDA dropped the ball on basically everything here. And I don't see it. But other than that, I'm the Spraticus. You can find me at twitch.tv/thespraticus and twitter.com/thespraticus.
Throw it over to Hake.
Well, thank you all, lady and gentlemen, everybody. This has been really fun. I learned quite a bit from a lot of you guys, maybe all of you. And shout out to the chat. I am James Hake, host of the Hake Report. Also, I do Hake News. I'm an expert on the Jesse Lee Peterson Show, thehakereport.com. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun and no ill will towards anybody.
Fantastic. Now throwing it over to Kevin Logan.
Yeah, everything that's been said about the formula thing has been said, so I'll leave that and just say to Hake, given the debate you had yesterday, anal sex is amazing. You should try it. Honest to God, you really should. Anyway, you can find me at KFLogan1875 here on Twitch, or Kevin Logan on Twitter if you want to hit me up for some anal sex. Again, go team anal sex.
Another one has fallen to the groomers. Throwing it over to the Turk.
I don't know how to follow that one, but I'll say my closing statement from what I said previously before this was what I got. But I am hosting a panel over at DreamHack Dallas this coming week. Gappy V is going to be in the same area. He won't be in my panel. But if y'all are interested in technology, PCs, computers, video games, all that stuff, follow me over at twitch.tv/theturk or YouTube/theturk. Because I talk PC stuff a lot of the times, and I only really do the politics stuff in order to educate people on their bad interpretations of data, or not actually adhering and understanding that law is important and we should actually follow law that's written on the books. So thanks, Dylan. Thank you to our one and only Danabo for the last minute phone call or text message to get me on here. So appreciate you.
Danabo,
right?
Danabo is the backbone of the Hippy Dippy Empire.
No, Danabo's an evil monster. He ambushed 2 people this week. Only 1 last week and 2 this week. What the fuck's going on? He's a monster. He can't be stopped.
Look, okay. Some people are trying to unionize, and so they've been put out of a job. And you know how those Democrat unionizers are evil, all of them. Anyway,
Communist scum.
Communists. Yeah. Thank you all for coming on. You all have a blessed weekend. See you guys next time. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, of course. Take care.
Thank you.
You guys.